Chapter 140. Shiva was not an impulsive person. He also knew what the price of being impulsive was. But now, on one hand, it was because of the alcohol, and on the other hand, everything in this small tavern was shocking to him. Although he was the crown prince, there were at least 30 brothers who wanted him dead. If he didn't have any tricks up his sleeve, he didn't know who would get the throne in the end. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and went all out. Zhang Feng had achieved his goal. He completely used the great deception technique. Let me ask you, what are the specialties of Jinla? Jade, top-grade jade, coral, seafood, and all kinds of fruits. Shiva reported truthfully. Zhang Feng nodded. Then what is your business? What are your main cash crops? Zhang Feng was a little angry. He was afraid that what he said would be different from the Jinla of the future. However, he knew that Sawattika was an industry thousands of years in the future. When Shiva's words became sluggish, he knew that his opportunity had come. His goal would soon be achieved. I won't hide it from Master Zhang. My Jinla's location is rather barren, so I'm very ashamed. My Jinla's cash crop basically depends on fruits and seafood. My goal in coming to the Great Tang this time was to obtain some farming experience. Our food supply is basically not enough to feed our people. Shiva said it was very miserable, but in Zhang Feng's impression, the rice produced in that place was very expensive even in the dignified Wuxia. Why was it so difficult to grow this thing in Jinla during the Tang dynasty? Wasn't this his opportunity? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Zhang Feng scolded with resentment. Shiva and Dala's eyes widened in an instant. Dala asked naively, then may I ask Master Zhang, what's ridiculous about it? She was a little angry. Looking at Zhang Feng's chest, she was so angry that she pouted her lips high. For a woman, that jade was something that she had to wear from birth. It had to be taken by her future husband when she got married, and then passed on to the next generation. However, in this small tavern, Brother Wang treated it as a gift and gave it to this pervert. How could she be happy? However, this person was quite good-looking. Thinking of this, Dara's face turned even redder. Zhang Feng couldn't see this scene, but Shiva saw it clearly, but he didn't say anything. He was just waiting for Zhang Feng to speak. Zhang Feng didn't say anything and remained silent. Shiva instinctively glanced at the pair of earrings on Dala's ears. He gritted his teeth and gestured for her to step down. Then he respectfully placed the earrings in front of Zhang Feng. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was furious. What are you doing? I've already said that we hit it off, but you can't use this thing to humiliate me. Siwa and Dala almost believed him when they saw Zhang Feng pressing his earlobes under his palms as he spoke. The corners of their mouths twitched uncontrollably. Fine. What an expert. We can't offend him. Shiva patiently asked. Master Zhang, please save the people of Jinla. If Master Zhang is willing to help, Jinla will definitely give you a big gift. Zai. This is boring. Zhang Feng waved his hand repeatedly, but his eyes were looking at the two of them from head to toe. About this, I'll ask you a question. In the Tang dynasty, there's a saying that goes, those who rely on the mountain live on the mountain, and those who rely on the water live on the water. Do you understand? There's such a saying in the Tang dynasty? Shiva blurted out subconsciously. However, after thinking about it, he felt that something was wrong and hurriedly cupped his fists. Master Zhang, please enlighten us. This kid is stupid. Zai. Such a simple thing. Fine, let me ask you, does Jinla have a lot of water? Yes. Moreover, it's mostly salty and alkaline land. That place is really not suitable for planting. Even fruits can't be grown there. Shiva sighed. That's right. Zhang Feng slapped his thigh. You're fundamentally wrong about this matter. Idiots. Damn it. What AF * king idiot. You can't even figure out such a simple question. Are you uncivilized barbarians? What can be grown in that alkaline land? Do you think Elder Yuan is the culprit? However, with a purpose in mind, Zhang Feng patiently asked again. To your east, is it facing the sea, where flowers bloom in spring? Master Zhang, have you been to Jinla? Shiva was shocked. If he hadn't been to Jinla, how could a small shopkeeper from the Tang dynasty know so much? Although it was not a secret, Shiva felt that an ordinary person like him wouldn't have the ability to cross mountains and rivers to go to Jinla. Don't tell me you haven't been to Jinla. But that's not important. I'm just asking you, right? Yes. Shiva was even more certain that Zhang Feng was that mysterious expert. He might be the kind of immortal that was described in the ancient books. At this moment, he was even more respectful and almost knelt down. After getting the answer, Zhang Feng confirmed the direction and said regretfully, "Don't any of you know the principle of relying on water to make a living?" This one is soft. What's this? This one looks like a worm. This one is soft. I know this tentacle monster. Father and the others call it an 8-legged monster. I heard that fishermen often fall victim to them. Zhang Feng drew one for every one of them. Shiva and Dara could name them. And when they heard it, they realized that these things were rampant. F*ck. You treat such good things as dog shit? F*ck. What a waste. Zhang Feng said seriously. These are the real treasures of the sea. And the fish you're talking about are all dregs. Remember, you must keep what I've drawn today a secret. This is something that even the fishermen of the Tang dynasty did not know about. This is the gift of the sea. But what's the use of these? Shiva finally asked the most important question. The key was that there were so many of these things that all of them were angry because they were the goddess of the sea. The crabs were still okay. Some people still ate them. However, there were too many bones. As for the others, they were horrified just by looking at them. Could these be Kuei treasures? Zhang Feng said again. Believe me, if you give up on farming and devote yourself to the sea, I can guarantee that you will make a fortune in less than a year. These things are very valuable. Shiva was shocked. Zhang Feng nodded solemnly. Businessmen are particular about seizing opportunities and creating hype. If you believe me, I can guarantee that there will be caravans buying these things in less than 3 months. And most importantly, you have to sell these things yourselves. If you can't, who knows what you really have? You're hiding it yourselves, and you want the merchants of the Tang dynasty to pay for it? Are you stupid? Zhang Feng was speechless. In this era, although there were such seafood along the coast of the Tang dynasty, there were not as many as Sawatdika. That place was a paradise for seafood. And at this moment he thought of a plan. Only Lao Li and the rest were left for this plan. If this plan worked, not only would he be able to get away with the grain storage crisis in Chang'an, but he would also be able to save Lao Li's life. Zhang Feng couldn't help but look outside the door and murmur in his heart. Old Li, you have to change your big mouth. As a brother, I can only help you up to this point. As for the grain storage issue in Chang'an, it depends on His Majesty's mood. Chapter 142. When Zhang Feng saw that there was a crazy food grab in Chang'an City, he knew that something bad was going to happen. Moreover, it was Li Yuan's birthday now, and the envoys of various countries were coming. If this thing broke out at this time, it would be really serious. He didn't know why Li Shimin chose to hoard food at this time, and with such great fanfare, but it must have something to do with Old Sun. When Old Sun left in a hurry that day, he knew that this guy would definitely tell Lao Li. But from the matter of hoarding food, he faintly sensed that this big mouth wouldn't have said it in the mansion of that old guy Zhang Sunwuji, right? Thinking about it this way, Zhang Feng was a little panicked. Hoarding food at this time, the current emperor's head was either kicked by a donkey, or he was going to make a big move. But it was obvious that this big move was related to Li Yuan. However, this had nothing to do with him. He was just worried that if this matter made the emperor angry, he would definitely kill people to deter the world. Then who would he kill? Of course, Lao Li and the other small businessmen. At that time, he was afraid that he would die before the system was activated. At this time he unexpectedly met Sawatdika. This unexpected guest made Zhang Feng applaud. He really came at the right time. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng excitedly told the two naive people about the commercial secrets related to aquatic products in detail. But in fact, this was not a secret at all. In the future, this was a common thing. It was just a business method to buy low and sell high, but it was regarded as a supreme treasure by the naive Prince Shiva. While Zhang Feng was trying his best to persuade them, the gold and silver of Shiva and his sister were all in Zhang Feng's pocket. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that he felt a little embarrassed. Hey, this is what I said. You have to remember it well. Shiva solemnly stood up, excitedly performed the noble etiquette with Dala, and then said solemnly, Master Zhang, you are too serious. You are a friend of Jinla. Jinla will definitely worship your portrait in the future. Damn it. Was he cursing me? Zhang Feng didn't want to lose his temper. For the sake of Jin Yinyu, he coughed and said, There's no need for that. We hit it off so well. Let me talk about something else. Jinla was not suitable for growing food. It's better not to waste food and labor. If you bring real preserved seafood and precious fruits to Chang'an city and offer them to King Tang, you can just sit back and enjoy the rest of your life. Zhang Feng's words were all over the place. Shiva and the other two were so excited that they screamed. Then may I ask, sir, how can our fruits be transported here after such a long journey? Moreover, we have tried before. It is very difficult to transport aquatic products and fruits here. Along the way, we have to go through layers of screening. We can't be careless. Basically, we can't pass Jiangnan. Everything stinks. This was a difficult problem. But how could this stump Master Zhang? He waved his hand and said, I was wondering what kind of problem it was. So it's just this trivial matter? I'll tell you. Have you heard about the water wheel that the Tang dynasty used to support Tubo? As long as you can please His Majesty, he will reward you with 100 water wheels. Then, you can transport fruits and aquatic products to Chang'an, and as I said, and those aquatic products are still alive and kicking. Really? Jinla is at least tens of thousands of miles away from Chang'an. What kind of thing can transport those things here? Everyone in the world knew about the water wheel. How could they not know? But that thing was a drought-resistant thing. How could it be used here? Zhang Feng rubbed his hands slyly. Shiva immediately knew what was going on. He hurriedly undid an emerald belt from his waist and handed it to Zhang Feng reluctantly. He said with a smile, Master Zhang, this belt. Before Shiva could tell him the origin of the belt, Zhang Feng exclaimed, Good stuff. Then the belt appeared on Zhang Feng's waist. Where did this thing come from? Zhang Feng was too lazy to ask, and he was too lazy to listen. Wasn't this a whole piece of emerald that was hollowed out and carved out? Although it looked good, it was a waste of God's gift if it was on you. He put away the belt. At this time, Zhang Feng said seriously, Prince Shiva, don't take this thing out again. I, Zhang Feng, don't care about such vulgar things. However, this emerald is good stuff. I like it very much. Without waiting for Shiva to speak, Zhang Feng also knew that it was time. Why did this grandson have a small warehouse on him? The table was full of things. How could he take them out from his body? Cough, cough. Listen carefully. This water wheel was invented by me. What? Is what Master Zhang said true? Shiva exploded. He knew that this thing was very precious. They had never even seen the real thing. But now in Chang'an city of the Tang dynasty, someone in a small tavern in the city said that he made this thing? If someone else had said that, Shiva would definitely have chuckled and spat in his heart. But after seeing Zhang Feng's wine pot and reclining chair, and then hearing Zhang Feng's mysterious business lecture, Shiva suddenly felt that he had hit the jackpot today. He had met a god. Chapter 143. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that he was about to get cancer. Being stared at by two dark monkeys with shining eyes, no matter how thick-skinned he was, he could not help but feel flustered. He hastily coughed and said, You should think about this matter carefully. As for the water wheel, if you understand, I will tell you how to transport seafood and fruits, as well as the method of preserving freshness. Now, I will tell you another way to make the country prosper. Are you interested? Yes. Shiva wished he could strangle Zhang Feng's neck and shake out the things in his head. Seeing that Zhang Feng was finally not long-winded, he was so excited that his muscles were cheering. What a good man. If he could solve the problem of hunger and make Jinla prosper, then everything else was nonsense. Seeing Shiva like this, Zhang Feng smacked his lips and said with waning interest, Actually, you really deserve to die. I remember there is a small island south of where you live, about 10 days by boat. That island is rich in spices. That thing is everywhere. You only need a piece of broken knife to exchange for a big bag. Do you know how much that thing can be sold for in Chang'an? How much? Shiva and Dara's eyes were wide open. 100 coins. A whole 100 coins. Shiva could not help but gasp. He knew that place, but he only knew that those things could only be used to smoke rooms and mosquitoes in summer in his palace. Most of the time, the people cut them for firewood. But now when he heard Zhang Feng's words, Shiva's face turned red. Damn it. He had wasted so many things for nothing. Not to mention selling a bag for 100 coins. Even if he could sell a big cart for 100 coins, or exchange it for a cart of food, he was already so excited that he was about to cry. After all, up until now most people in Jinla were basically hungry and full. Thinking of this, he could not help but want to beat himself to death. Hurriedly grabbing Zhang Feng's hand, Shiva asked excitedly, Master Zhang, may I ask if those things you mentioned are sold in Chang'an? I don't want to wait a moment longer. You should also know the difficulties my people are facing now. In the depths of his emotions, this guy actually acted out a sad scene, wiping his snot and tears on Zhang Feng's sleeve. Zhang Feng hurriedly pushed him away in disgust. He seriously doubted whether this guy had some kind of genes. No. Didn't Sawadi Ka have such fetishes? At the thought of this, Zhang Feng's entire body was covered in goosebumps. Okay. Stop crying, you're a man. Come. Since this old man has said it, the spit of a man of the great Tang is a nail in his mouth. As long as you shut your mouth, this old man will tell you right now. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that he had cancer of embarrassment. It was fine if he didn't think about his past life, but when he thought about it, Zhang Feng instantly exploded. He hurriedly shook off Shiva and hid on Dala's bench, seeking comfort. Dala was so embarrassed that his face was as red as a ripe peach. I'll write it down for you. Otherwise, with your IQ, I think you'll forget it all before you go out. Zhang Feng flung Shiva's hand away in disgust. He glared at Shiva, who was sitting far away from him. Then he wrote and drew on the paper as he spoke. Spices are more popular in the aristocratic circle of the Tang dynasty. Now the main source of spices in the Tang dynasty is Persia, Shuiyantua, and Dashi, which is thousands of miles away. However, these spices are not as pure as your Jinlas. But remember, there are a group of Russians and native monkeys living there. As for whether you can get them, it depends on you. Also look at this hell flower I drew. You have to stay away from this thing. If you have any evil intentions and bring it to the Tang dynasty, I can guarantee that not only will you not be able to earn money, but that will also be the day of your Jinla's destruction. Hellflower. Prince Jinla nodded his head like a chicken pecking rice. He had seen that stuff before. Eating it would make people go crazy, and it would also make people lose their minds. That stuff had basically been burned to death. However, seeing Zhang Feng mention it so seriously, Shiva was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. Zhang Feng's calligraphy was very good. Although it could not be compared to a calligraphy master, it had its own unique flavor. As for whether Jinla could understand it or not, he didn't care. He wrote the words Zhang Feng at the end in big letters. Then he looked at Shiva as if he was looking at a monster. I'm giving this to you because we're fated to be together. Do as you see fit. Also remember one thing. I remember that you have this thing on the Jinla beach, right? As Zhang Feng spoke, he took out a fist-sized piece of black and slightly yellowish salt ore from the counter and asked. Prince Jinla looked at the salt ore and said doubtfully, Isn't this thing poisonous salt? I have a lot of it. Is Master Zhang interested? Interested? Zhang Feng's teeth were hurting. He bared his white teeth and asked, I can eat as much as you have. Chapter 144. Siwa and Dala looked at each other. They looked at Zhang Feng as if they were looking at a monster. This thing had troubled them for generations. Because of this thing they could not grow food. Many things could not be grown. Moreover, there were so many of these things that it made one's hair stand on end. They could not eat it. Not to mention that not a single blade of grass grew nearby. Even animals did not dare to come close. But now this mysterious Master Zhang actually wanted it? That's really too good. Deal. It was rare for Siwa to not be shy. He grabbed Zhang Feng's hand, scaring Zhang Feng so much that he bounced up reflexively and almost jumped into Dala's arms. Don't. It's improper for men to touch each other. Please respect yourself. I'm a very self-disciplined person. Zhang Feng waved his hand repeatedly. Then he glanced at Dala, coughed and sat still. He regained the demeanor of an expert and said, I want to ask, do you have a lot of these things there? Siwa sighed. Master Zhang, are you testing my sincerity? I know that Master Zhang must have been to Jinla. Otherwise, it would be impossible for you to know so much about Jinla. Don't you know that there is at least an area of a city in the south of Jinla with this thing? Every year, we spend a lot of manpower and financial resources to manage this thing, but this thing is like the stones in the ground. There are so many of them that it makes one's hair stand on end. This is the main reason why our people can't fill their stomachs. I didn't expect Master Zhang to like this thing too. If that's the case, I'll make the decision and give it to Master Zhang. But my country's strength is limited, and this thing is rich in poison. So, if you want it, you can dig it up yourself. No matter how much you want, Jinla will open the door and give it to you. He was not stupid. As the prince of a country, he had seen Zhang Feng's magical ability. If he still did not know that Zhang Feng was after their thing, then he would really be a pig. Zhang Feng's head was a little twisted. He thought that this guy was easy to fool, but he did not expect that he would be led into a ditch. Could he go to Jinla? Could he go? He couldn't go. If he did, it would no longer be a treasure. It was quite simple to refine this thing. As long as his people dared to go, the art of making salt would definitely be leaked in less than half a year. Zhang Feng's mouth twitched. His expression didn't change as he glanced at Shiva and said, I have some use for this thing, but it's not that useful. I know a merchant who buys this stuff. If you want to sell it, I estimate that a cart of this stuff can be exchanged for 10 caddies of grain. Do you want to trade? Zhang Feng spoke without blushing or panting. After saying that, he couldn't stand Shiva anymore and took a sip of wine from his bowl. Then he put away the paper on the table and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Shiva seemed to have realized that if he didn't agree to this matter, then everything they had discussed before would be for nothing. Because until now, Master Zhang only told him that those things could make him rich, but he didn't tell him the ultimate goal. He also knew that this poisonous salt seemed to be an additional condition. Although he didn't know what Zhang Feng wanted this thing for, he didn't ask. A cart of trash could be exchanged for 10 caddies of grain. That was just a saying. 100 carts could be exchanged. Heavens! Thinking of the countless poisonous salts, his eyes burned with passion. He gritted his teeth and pressed down on the corner of the letter, saying, Master Zhang, let's talk things over. If you want me to give you a few carts of this thing, it's not a problem. It's not about the grain or not. If you really want to do business with this thing, then I'll be serious. A cart of 10 caddies of grain, I'll take it seriously? Zhang Feng smiled and sat down again. He patted Shiva's shoulder that was full of dust and said, That's right. This thing is actually not worth much. I'm just testing you to see if you have the sincerity to do business with Jinla. I can guarantee that the people I know are powerful enough to take all of the things I mentioned before. But as for everything else, you'll have to discuss it yourselves. I just saw you because of fate. As he spoke, he removed Shiva's hand and crumpled the paper into a ball under Shiva's and Dala's fierce gazes. Dala didn't care about anything else. Although he was blushing, the beauty hidden under his dark skin made him look a little more pleasing to the eye. Otherwise, Zhang Feng wouldn't have been so unscrupulous. Master Zhang, my brother and I came to Chang'an to solve the grain problem of Jinla. Today, we saw so much grain in Chang'an city and heard that His Majesty the Tang Emperors is stockpiling grain. Therefore, we have to discuss this matter seriously. We will tell my father everything that happened today. This matter must be approved by him personally. You should discuss this matter as soon as possible. After all, I've only met that businessman twice. Maybe he will go to Dashi on that day. He had finally taken the bait. Lao Tzu was going to become the savior of Sawatika. Lao Tzu, I've added another bargaining chip for your life. I hope your bad temper doesn't kill you now. Otherwise, Lao Tzu would really be alone in the Tang dynasty. This way, all the civil and military officials in the court will not have a single word of complaint. Your Majesty. Zhang Sun Wugo hurriedly blocked the agitated Li Shimin. What name are you using? Right now, the matter of tubo cannot be exposed. Moreover, the true effects of the water will have not been revealed. Even if the contribution of the salt-making technique is meritorious, this is not the time. Li Shimin vexed and viciously broke the red sandalwood jade brush. He sighed. It is rare for us to have a close friend. However, we can't do anything right now. Only something as insignificant as money can express one's sincerity. However, Guanin's servant, you should know that Zhang Feng's goal is not money. If he wants to be rich enough to rival a country, then the method of cooking locusts, as well as the mysterious wine and delicacies, which one of these would not allow him to make a fortune? However, he did not. Perhaps it is because he is too lonely. At this time, Li Shimin somewhat believed Zhang Feng's words. He was an old monster who had lived for 5,000 years. However, when he thought of his exaggerated and indifferent way of speaking, it was completely to talk about loneliness. It was because he was lonely, endlessly lonely, that he told me everything. But how could Li Shimin not know the importance of each and every one of these things? If he really wanted to make money, he could completely know the value of the water wheel. And it was not only so much. However, the money given to him, he did not even count it and took it into his arms? It seemed that he was greedy for money, but in fact, he was hiding his loneliness. Was this the attitude of looking at the overall situation? When can we have such charm? Originally, he was prepared to find Zhang Feng earlier today. However, the trivial matters of Chang'an city, as well as the matter of the foreign envoys, made him extremely busy. Only now did he have some free time. However, when he was free, his mind was full of Zhang Feng. At this time, Li Shimin had an urgent hope. He urgently hoped that Zhang Feng could be by his side, and let him stand in the main hall of the political announcement palace. He wanted to let those decadent and useless civil officials see that the Tang dynasty was not only decadent people like them who only cared about their own interests, and did not have the slightest intention to improve and innovate for the Tang dynasty. Thinking of this, he looked at the fiery sunset outside the window. Li Shimin put his hands behind his back, like a lonely wolf, looked up at the sky and said, Guanin's servant, follow me out of the palace to see that bastard. Chapter 146. In the end, Empress Zhangsun still didn't follow Li Shimin. This time, Li Shimin didn't bring anyone with him. He brought Xiao Gizi and Wei Shuyu's team of Jinwu guards, changed into the gorgeous clothes of merchants, and turned into the East Market through the Yanxi Gate. At this moment, Zhang Feng, who was thirsty, paid the price of a poem by Li Bai and completely exploited Shiva and Dala. Then he waved his sleeve and said, I'm tired. Please go back. The two trembled with fear as they held Zhang Feng's calligraphy. They kicked the servants who were pretending to be asleep awake, and then bowed and left Zhang Feng's store. Shiva even tactfully closed the door for him. When he hid behind the door and heard the sound of footsteps gradually fading away, Zhang Feng's mouth was about to reach his ears. I'm rich. I'm really rich. Jade. They're all top-grade jade. Damn these idiots. Although they're stupid, they're really rich. Looking at the table full of jadeite and other valuable items, Zhang Feng concluded that if he sold these things, he would definitely be able to amass an unimaginable amount of wealth in a short period of time. But, was he greedy? Greedy my ass. He was a collector. He liked this name. He couldn't bear to see good things being covered in dust. Anything in the hands of others was equivalent to asking for his old life. Any one of these things, if passed down to the future, would be a priceless treasure. He was thinking, if he could return to the modern world after the system was activated, should he bring Lao Li and the others to see the modern Chang'an city? Presumably, Lao Li and the others would be so excited that they would suddenly have a heart attack, right? While looking at the table full of treasures and laughing foolishly, Zhang Feng didn't notice that the door of the tavern was opened again. A voice that was cloaked in the setting sun appeared in his ears. Shopkeeper? Who are you trying to rob? Why are there suddenly so many treasures? The person who came was Li Shimin. After seeing the treasures on the table, he was envious. He couldn't help it. He was poor. In the Tang dynasty he needed money. Moreover, the Emperor Emeritus's birthday was about to be celebrated. He was having a headache about money. Now seeing the table full of money, his eyes couldn't help but light up. But at this moment, Zhang Feng was like a hen protecting its chicks. He pounced on the table and stuffed all the treasures on the table into his clothes, leaving only the string of pearls and some small parts outside. Seeing this, Li Shimin says, "Yo, Lao Li, I thought you were caught in the prison. Zhang Feng laughed and threw all the treasures on the floor inside the counter, as if they were rubbish. Then he clapped his hands. Tavern he took out a jug of fine wine from the counter and said, "What's going on today? You don't seem to be in a good mood." Ignoring Zhang Feng's jesting, Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng with interest, looking him up and down. Zhang Feng was a little angry. He had just experienced swatika. There were still many shadows in his heart. He didn't expect that before he could recover, he would be stared at by Lao Li again. It would be strange if he didn't explode. Ahem. Zhang Feng coughed. Li Shimin retracted his gaze playfully. Looking at a dropped earring on the table, he teased, "So you brat, you robbed Yanlai restaurant? Get lost." Zhang Feng, who was embarrassed into anger, shamelessly put the earring in his pocket and said, "If I had that ability, I wouldn't have opened a small tavern. By the way, why are you here? Where are they?" Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't say anything, Li Shimin didn't bother to ask. "They're all busy stocking up grain now. They're very busy during this period of time." Zhang Feng was puzzled. "Then why are you so free? You still have the leisure to come here? Tell me, did you get into trouble? Waiting for me to bail them out?" He didn't believe Li Shimin's words when he was eating. But Li Shimin didn't intend to say anything about this. This matter did go wrong, but fortunately, Lord Zhongsun will take care of everything. We're fine for the time being. We're fine. That's good. Lao Li, you have a good life. Now that you've met me, you see, everything is going smoothly. Li Shimin rolled his eyes at Zhang Feng. Don't be confused. Seriously, do these things belong to those Jinla messengers? Don't say no. This jade is a special product of Jinla. It's precious. You know, this earring can be sold for more than 10 taels of gold in the circle of noblewomen. With Li Shimin's sharp eyes, how could he not know who the people who just went out were? But looking at their clothes, other than the clothes, the rest of the ornaments were all gone. Even Prince Jinla's belt and Princess Jinla's head ornament were gone. What could this mean? This guy must have cheated them badly. Seeing that his lie was exposed, Zhang Feng stopped pretending. He smiled and said, "When I saw so many people stocking up grain in Chang'an City, I thought something had happened to you. I was thinking of getting some money and using my connections to bail you out. I didn't expect that my efforts were in vain." However, Zhang Feng changed the topic and said mysteriously, "Lao Li, I have a big business deal. Do you dare to do it?" Chapter 147. Li Shimin's eyelids twitched. He forcibly suppressed the urge to ask Zhang Feng how to solve the predicament in Chang'an City and his father's conflict. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "What kind of deal is so mysterious? Is it related to Jinla?" Oh, as expected of Lao Li, his brain was better than Old Wei and Lai Sun's. "I guessed it from those fools." Li Shimin curled his lips. Even a fool could guess it, okay? However, Zhang Feng's words were very effective on him. It was very strange. There was no shortage of flatterers in the court, but Li Shimin was annoyed when he saw them. He wanted to kill them, but he was looking forward to Zhang Feng's praise. And it was the kind of praise that was full of sarcasm. This made Li Shimin very happy. He cupped his hands and personally took a jar of wine from the counter. Without waiting for Zhang Feng's instructions, he opened the mud seal and drank from the jar. What kind of friendship do we have? Although we have never been on the battlefield, but it can be considered a friendship of life and death. Everything that I have now is all because of your guidance. Just tell me, what kind of deal? I've been waiting for you, Lao Li. Zhang Feng pulled Li Shimin to sit beside him. He hooked his arm around Li Shimin's neck and said, "I'll tell you. Do you know why Zhenla's people were like that just now?" "Why? Oh right, I forgot. How did you manage to trick them into giving you something so precious?" "Trick?" Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin and immediately showed a look of disdain. "Do you think I, Zhang Feng, relied on trickery? I relied on my own ability, okay? But this stupid prince is really a F*** king rich idiot. Look, it's easy." He took out the jade pendant on La's neck and shook it, making Li Shimin want to snatch it. This is the filial piety money I gave them when I pointed them out. I earned it with my own ability. Then tell me, how did you point them out? Li Shimin was interested and forgot many of his troubles. It seemed that only in this small tavern could he really show his true nature. Do you know what La's specialty is? Zhang Feng asked mysteriously. Li Shimin was really confused. What did La produce? This, every year, the tributes were basically ordinary goods. In that place, people were so poor that they couldn't even afford to wear pants. What else could they offer? But seeing Zhang Feng's expression, Li Shimin couldn't help but become excited. Did you find something new? Yes. Let me ask you, old Li, have you ever heard of relying on the mountain to live off the mountain and the water to live off the water? I've heard of it. And this matter has been taught by the Han people for generations. Li Shimin was sure. Alas, Zhang Feng sighed. Do you know that idiot Jinla doesn't even know this? Don't you think it's infuriating? Born in a treasure mountain, but starved to madness. I think in the whole world Jinla is so naive and cute. Just tell me, what did you find? Li Shimin didn't wait for Zhang Feng to finish his long-winded speech, and hurriedly poured him a bowl of wine and asked, Don't worry. Listen to me first. This matter is related to the long-term supply of table salt, and the important point of whether the Tang dynasty can firmly control the surrounding countries. So powerful? Li Shimin was also shocked. He hurriedly put down the irritation in his heart. He listened carefully. Zhang Feng was not in a hurry now. What do the coastal areas rely on for a living, Lao Li? Fishing. The coastal areas of the Tang dynasty rely on fish for a living. Isn't Jinla doing the same? Zhang Feng shook his head and asked again. Then what do they catch? Fish, just fish. Is there anything delicious in the sea? No way. Zhang Feng wanted to vomit blood. The sea. The coastal areas. What kind of place was that? That was a treasure bowl. Let me tell you, the most worthless thing in the sea is fish. Do you think those skinny, salty fish taste good? Li Shimin shrugged and sighed. You may not know. Sea fish are basically an important way to extract salt from the sea. The inland relies on this salt to survive. What do you think these sea fish mean? Wrong. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin as if looking at a fool and said, I really doubt you. Are you a businessman? Can't you think this way? Let me tell you, the most worthless thing in the sea is fish. And those things that you think are the most unsightly are the real good things. While talking, Zhang Feng took out a piece of paper again. He seriously drew the shape of a sea cucumber on the paper and said, This thing is called sea cucumber ginseng. You know it, right? I know this. But what does it have to do with this? Is this sea cucumber also a tonic? Zhang Feng exploded. It's more than a tonic. This thing is a great tonic. Do you know? If you eat too much of this thing, it can replenish qi and blood, and also nourish the kidney. Let's not talk about other benefits for the time being. Look at this. While talking, he drew lobsters again, especially Australian lobsters, seahorses, starfish, and so on. These are all tonics. When some things are combined with each other, it will be a medicinal herb. Extremely precious medicinal herbs. And in this shell, this thing, grind it into powder, add some medicinal herbs, and add some pearls. It's a supreme treasure for women to beautify and whiten their skin. Zhang Feng's saliva flew everywhere as he talked. In the end, he tinkered with a set of things for the beauty and skin care of later generations. And Li Shimin's whole body froze. Chapter 148. If it was before, Li Shimin would definitely think that Zhang Feng was talking nonsense after drinking. He would naturally take it as a joke. However, this was Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng, who had once saved him. How could his words be false? However, thinking about it, Li Shimin felt particularly awkward. Such a good thing. How could he not recognize it in front of him? How could he not feel uncomfortable? Moreover, Zhang Feng had just said that there was a treasure mountain in Jinla. Wouldn't Li Shimin be the same? Li Shimin's face was about to turn green. He stared and asked, Then, do you mean that there are treasures everywhere by the sea? Are you questioning the current emperor's blindness? No. No. You don't dare to say that. Zhang Feng hurriedly stuffed Li Shimen's mouth with a fried yellow crab. If someone were to hear this, they would be dug out of their graves and whipped their corpses. Although Zhang Feng had no relatives in this world, he was afraid. In this feudal society, he did not dare to be careless. Laoli, I say you're stubborn. If you continue to talk about the state affairs and the current emperor so foolishly, our fate will end here. Who is that? That's the current emperor. The good emperor who almost knelt down to the people for the sake of the people. Take a lantern and look for him. Look through the history books and see which emperor is better than the current emperor. Zhang Feng's method of giving a piece of meat with a stick made Li Shimen extremely uncomfortable, but he also enjoyed such treatment. He did not know if he was cheap or not. But at this time, it was no longer important. He was short of money. Now, as long as he heard that he could make money, he would want to take it as if he was crazy. Moreover, Zhang Feng said it in such a mysterious and dignified manner. Could it be that this little Zhenla is so important? What you just said. I believe there are also some in the waters of the Tang dynasty, right? Why should Zhenla benefit while the people of the Tang dynasty suffer? Before you do, don't they always say that they want to stimulate the economy and set up cooperatives? Why is that? I said you're stupid. You're still a god. You're really stupid. Zhang Feng was filled with disdain. Let me ask you, this ocean is only so big, but how many people did the Tang dynasty have? If it was prosperous, the Tang dynasty would have to rely on the sea for the rest of its life. What about the next generation? The next generation, they ate up everything in the sea. What are you eating now? Are you stupid? Even rabbits don't eat the grass near their burrows. Why do you always want to eat all the grass around your nest? Wait for the hunters to come and become a delicacy? Li Shimen was once met with a supercilious look. But this time Li Shimen was not angry. Instead, he was incomparably shocked. Zhang Feng was very direct. They had enough to eat for the rest of their lives. But what could they leave for their descendants? Just leave behind a mess? How could they be immortalized? They would go down in infamy for 10,000 years. Li Shimen could not help but break out in a cold sweat. His forehead was full of sweat. Priceless advice. Li Shimen smiled bitterly. I've read poetry and books, but I've forgotten such an obvious truth. As he spoke, Li Shimen stood up solemnly and bowed to Zhang Feng. And Zhang Feng accepted it happily. Li Shimen could understand this truth, and he was very satisfied. At the very least, if there were more such merchants, the Tang dynasty would not only last for 300 years, and there would be a lot more legacies that could be left behind. This was what Zhang Feng was most satisfied with. He was not satisfied. When the time came, he would buy Australian sponges from abroad for a few hundred yuan per caddy. This thing was not valuable, but he could only watch it be cheated. Why? Because it was extinct. Because of those idiots in history, it was extinct. The future generations wanted to eat it. Sure. Please go abroad and buy it for tens or hundreds of times the price. If Zhang Feng's plan was implemented with Lao Li, Zhang Feng could foresee that in the future the whole world would be bought by the Tang dynasty and the people of Wuxia. After it was all bought, sorry, but do you want to eat it? Come. Lao Tzu could sell as much as he wanted. You don't want to buy it? Get lost. That was heroism. Wuxia lacked such heroism. That heroism was originally there, but it was obliterated by the extension of history. Zhang Feng's appearance was to prevent Wuxia from suffering any humiliation in the future, although he did not have any illusions. But the moment he transmigrated to the Tang dynasty, he had such a dream. Since he was here, the most prosperous Tang dynasty in history, then let the Wuxia people in their heyday, let them surpass everything, cross the ocean, and let the flag of the Tang dynasty be planted on every inch of land in the world. Let them be free labor for the Tang dynasty. Only then would it be worthy of Zhang Feng's title of the Emperor of Eternity. The Emperor of Eternity who truly completed the unification of the world, not the half-baked Emperor Qin Shi Huang and Emperor Wu of Han. At this moment, Li Shimen was sighing. His heart was spreading and burning. And Zhang Feng was the same. At this moment, he suddenly felt that the world in the future was no longer so narrow. He was no longer alone. Which chivalrous person was not a lonely fighter? It was just that he let the trajectory of history, under the premise of normal operation, let him turn faster and farther. That was what he wanted to do in the future. Since he was here, then he had to leave some memories for Wuxia. He would leave a thick and colorful mark. Chapter 149. Li Shimin was very shocked. Such a brilliant plan. This was really a plan to eradicate the family. This plan might be carried out for several generations, or even dozens of generations. But in his hands, he was the person at the helm of this plan. He controlled the future of this plan. This was even more exciting for his dream of a golden age where all countries would pay homage to him. Although he knew that he would not live until then. But at this time, he could imagine the expressions of those foreigners who would kneel in front of his tomb and tell him about his deeds thousands of years later, when all countries came to pay homage to him. Li Shimin could not help but laugh at his fantasy of a golden age. And Zhang Feng did not disturb him. He knew that Lao Li was enlightened. This was a kind of sublimation. It was also a part of his plan. The Great Tang needed merchants like this. These honest merchants lacked the scheming and deceit of the later generations, only a patriotism. This was rare and commendable. He had simply helped the lost find the lighthouse in their hearts at the right time. Hey, Lao Li, are you thinking about the future? Zhang Feng stared at Li Shimin and asked with a smile. Li Shimin's dream was shattered. Not only did he not blame Zhang Feng, but there were also traces of tears in his eyes. Yes. I see the future, no. 10 years later, the golden age of the Tang dynasty. That is what we want to see the most. When we go to every corner of the world, we only need to show the name of the Tang dynasty, and the whole world will bow down to us. What a glory this is. We are no longer the four-legged sheep that others say, and no longer the target that anyone can bully. They can only carve 2 words in their bones. The Tang dynasty. But, what a pity. There are too few people in the Tang dynasty who can have such awareness. Li Shimin shook his head. He abruptly picked up the wine jug and poured it over his head to hide the tears at the corners of his eyes. That's quite a lot. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder and said, "Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, heavenly lightning struck a forest, and a huge fire burned in the forest for more than 100 days. There were flames everywhere in the air, just like the stars in the sky. Among them, one of the sparks was the size of a fingernail at first, but it drifted and drifted, and in the end, it was only the size of a needle tip that was about to extinguish. When he was about to die out, he landed on a withered grassland. Then, he slowly used the remaining heat of his ashes to ignite the entire grassland." Li Shimin listened attentively. It was as if he was the spark in front of him. Li Shimin cried out in surprise when he heard that spark had used its last bit of heat to ignite the entire grassland. And then? Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin and patted him on the shoulder. After that, the grassland burned for an entire year. The soil was burned until it was bright red. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. This place could no longer grow a single grass seed. However, after a rain, everyone was shocked to find that this grassland had once again bloomed with even more luxuriant weeds than before. This, Li Shimin was shocked. Zhang Feng looked at him, dipped the brush in the ink box, and waved the brush on the gray-white wall. A single spark can start a prairie fire. The spring breeze moistens things silently. Fire can start a prairie fire silently. Although it was a poem that was pieced together, Li Shimin was shocked. Looking at the words on the wall, he couldn't help but be shocked. A single spark can start a prairie fire. The spring breeze moistens things silently. Fire can start a prairie fire silently. God. Zhang Feng, Lao Li, I hope that you must pass on this sentence for generations to come. Don't underestimate a single spark. Its momentum of starting a prairie fire is unstoppable. No one, no force can stop it. However, it is a catalyst that burns rotten traditions, breaks and establishes, and moves forward. Li Shimin choked. A spark. A spark. Right now, what his imperial court needed the most was a spark of fire. Everyone was adhering to the rules. How could they let the cavalry of the Tang dynasty take another step forward? Although there was a powerful strategy and an unprecedented planning ability, no one carried it out. This was the momentum of starting a prairie fire. This was how the lofty skyscraper toppled. Zhang Feng. Laoli, I Laoli, am unable to repay your kindness to me. Don't say that you will repay me with your body. I will kill you. Zhang Feng was speechless. He hurriedly supported Li Shimon's kneeling posture and said speechlessly. Zhang Feng's words perfectly resolved the crisis. Because just now on the beam of his house, Wei Shiyu's crossbow was already aimed at him. That's enough, Laoli. Let's not be pretentious. Every one of us has a role to play and a mission that we need to complete. I am the one who will make this wheel turn. And you are the one who will make the wheel turn. Laoli, do you want to build a prosperous Tang dynasty with me? Chapter 150. Yes. Why wouldn't I? Li Shimin didn't even think about it. Until now, he no longer had any doubts about the mystery of Zhang Feng's origin. Damn it. Zhang Feng is from the Tang dynasty. Does he still want to harm the Tang dynasty? Let all the doubts go to hell. Seeing Li Shimin so determined, Zhang Feng nodded. Then he said, this is why I strongly recommended Dahai to Zhenla. When they throw themselves into the sea and happily transport goods to the Tang dynasty, Zhenla is really a Zhenla. In fact, he is a member of the Tang dynasty. I am a dog of the Tang dynasty. What a vicious plan. However, Li Shimin's fists were clenched tightly. He was extremely excited. Wei Shiyu, who was on the beam, was also shocked by Zhang Feng's plan. It could even be said that Zhang Feng's words just now opened the door to another world for him. He had heard the name Zhang Feng from his father for a long time, but even if he asked anything about Zhang Feng, his father didn't say a word. Today, he was lucky enough to accompany the emperor out of the palace. He didn't expect to see the mysterious person who was highly praised by his father and all his uncles, and who hid very well. Today, he secretly sneaked into the beam of the tavern without anyone knowing. He was worried about the emperor, and wanted to see how powerful Zhang Feng was. Now he saw it. She took a deep look at Zhang Feng. He seemed to be about the same age as her, but he had such talent. He was able to make her father shocked, praise him all day long, and admire his calligraphy all day long. This was something that Wei Shiyu would never forget for the rest of her life. He glanced at the words on the wall again, and silently remembered them in his heart. Then he quietly sneaked out. Zhang Feng, I'm looking forward to the golden age of the Tang dynasty that you mentioned. Regarding this, Li Shimin and Zhang Feng did not notice at all. However, this did not affect their conversation. From the price of the aquatic products to how to sell them, and so on, Li Shimin smacked his lips and said, this Shenla is really sitting on a treasure mountain. Tell me, what else does he have? What else? Zhang Feng smiled. They have a lot of things. While talking, Zhang Feng showed off a handful of jade and said, look at this thing, this is a good treasure. In the future, everything will be yours and mine. Are you satisfied? Also, do you know how profitable the best spices on the market are? Li Shimin was shocked. Touching the sachet on his belt, he asked, could it be that Zhenla also has this thing? This thing costs 100 strings of coins per caddy. Aha! Zhang Feng smiled faintly. Laoli, what if I tell you that that place not only has another kind of spice in the world, but its price is so low that you'll go crazy? What will you do? How low? Li Shimin went crazy. About 1,000 strings of coins per cart. F***ck. Li Shimin exploded. A whole cart. How many stones would that be? Only 1,000 strings of coins? Li Shimin could not help but have the urge to drool. Looking at Li Shimin's exaggerated appearance, Zhang Feng patted him on the shoulder in annoyance. This is nothing. If you sign a long-term supply contract, the price of that thing will be even lower. And you know that in Zhenla, that thing is only used as firewood. Do you believe it? Li Shimin had the urge to order the troops to send out now. Such a good thing. And Zhenla wasted it like this? What a waste. What a reckless waste of resources. How good would it be if it was given to me? How good would it be if I had this thing in the Tang dynasty? Li Shimin went crazy. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin's crazy eyes and laughed a few times. He seemed to be a little drunk. He had been drinking since noon. Even the god of wine would be F***king drunk. Let alone him. He got up dizzily, sat on the ground against the wall, patted the floor beside him, and waved his hand. Li Shimin simply sat cross-legged on the floor. Zhang Feng said mysteriously, "This thing is just one of them. There is another thing that you should have heard of, that is lychee and bananas. You are used to calling them ganjiao. There are also many strange fruits. Because of poor preservation, they have only been sold in the places closest to the Tang dynasty. I gave them an idea. Let these fruits and seafood be transported to Chang'an, and fresh." "What idea?" Li Shimin asked. Among the tributes of Zhenla, there were indeed fruits, but they were basically dried fruits. He craved those things. Not only him, but the empress and the others also liked those things. Moreover, every time Zhenla came to offer tributes, the noble women of Chang'an would pester the ministers and often come to him. What idea could he have? Everyone was wringing their hands. If only there were fresh ones. But now, Zhang Feng actually came up with an idea? This aroused Li Shimin's great interest. "What else is there? It's just a water wheel." Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. "Are you stupid? That thing could be used to fight the drought, and it could even be sold. Otherwise, are you going to use the useless water wheel to chop firewood?" Chapter 151. Li Shimin's head was swollen and hurting badly now. He felt dizzy. It was as if someone had hit him hard with a stick. His original plan was to sell the remaining 80,000 water wheels to Tubo or Tuyuhan. But now, it seemed that this plan had to be changed. There was a way out for what was originally a headache. "Do you want it or not? If you don't, I'll turn around and use it for business." This was far more cost-effective than buying a water wheel. How much would it cost to build one? "As long as you Tubo or Tuyuhan have food, my Tang dynasty will make as much as you want." No. Now it had to be changed. He couldn't use the wood of the Tang dynasty. "If you want it, exchange it with wood." Li Shimin suddenly felt that he was so wise and mighty. Brother Zhang Feng, just say it. What other good things do you have? Just tell me all of them. Don't spill the beans. It's really making me anxious." Li Shimin couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't wait to go back and personally summon Prince Xinla and the others. It would be best if he signed the contract tonight for 100 years. No, a 500-year contract. He would directly tie him down. Zhang Feng saw that Li Shimin was really smiling at this time, without the worry when he entered the door, and said slowly, "Actually, the map outside Jinla is very big. They are very wild and barbaric. There are even places where people are still eating raw meat and drinking blood. There are countless resources in such places waiting for us to explore, so Jinla is our first step. And Jinla is actually nothing, Laoli." Zhang Feng couldn't help but sigh. He was afraid that what he was about to say would scare him. An endless supply of salt. Even if it was recorded in history that it was mined from the Tang dynasty, at least during Zhang Feng's time, there were still people mining. Although at that time, no one cared about salt. He only went to take a look out of curiosity, when he heard the old man in Sawadika talk about it when he was traveling. This was enough to show how abundant the production of this thing was, right? Even after thousands of years, they still couldn't finish digging. If this wasn't a treasure, then what was? Zhang Feng wanted to completely turn salt into a cheap commodity. This Zhenla was the key to this. Otherwise, with the amount of salt produced in the Tang dynasty, not to mention selling it, it wouldn't even be enough for them to eat. But now everything is fine. With this toy, those with big necks could scram to the Tubo Turks, Dashi Empire, and other places. The Tang dynasty does not welcome you. No. It's Lao Tzu. Zhang Feng doesn't welcome you. Brother Zhang Feng? Brother? Brother, wake up. Originally, Li Shimin had been waiting for Zhang Feng to say something, but after waiting for a long time, he finally realized that Zhang Feng was laughing sinisterly. That smile was so cheap that Li Shimin wished he could slap him away. He shook Zhang Feng to wake him up speechlessly. Zhang Feng coughed without blushing and said, "Laoli, I think you'd better be prepared first. What I'm going to say next, May, don't talk nonsense. Just say it. You're a porcelain hammer." Fine. I'll say it." Zhang Feng was a little speechless. He couldn't even pretend to be cool anymore. "If I'm not comfortable, you won't have it easy either." Thinking of this, Zhang Feng smiled and said, "Do you know what's the most valuable and precious thing of Jinla? What does the Tang dynasty need the most now? Don't talk about food. If Jinla had food, he wouldn't have come to the Tang dynasty to ask for food." Li Shimin curled his lips. "It's not food. It's something else that concerns the people's livelihood." Li Shimin couldn't figure it out. He was very anxious. There were too many things that concerned the people's livelihood. How could he know what Zhang Feng was up to? Just as Li Shimin was about to strangle Zhang Feng's neck, Zhang Feng stretched out a hand to stop Li Shimin, and then said a word faintly. "Salt. There are countless salt mines that can at least supply all the people in the Tang dynasty. They won't dry up even after 500 years of free trial." Boom. Li Shimin felt like he was struck by lightning. Otherwise, how could he fall to the ground? And there was a big bump on his forehead. However, all of this was not important. Li Shimin grabbed Zhang Feng's collar and asked with a very serious expression, "What did you say? Say it again?" Zhang Feng was also confused. This Lao Li, why did his expression and aura look a bit like a person? However, at this time he was drunk and dizzy. How could he have the mind to think about who Li Shimin looked like? He patted the shocked Li Shimin and said, "Lao Li, that's where you're wrong. I told you to be prepared. You didn't wet your pants, did you?" Under Li Shimin's murderous gaze, Zhang Feng was terrified. "Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Actually, this is true. I was just casually asking. I didn't expect that at least one city area in Jinla is a poisonous salt mine that even birds and beasts don't dare to enter. I estimated that if we can get it, within 500 years of the Tang dynasty, everyone can buy a caddy of salt for only 1 coin. Li Shimin still didn't believe it. However, he also knew that his attitude was a bit too excited. Fortunately, Zhang Feng was drunk at this time. Otherwise, he would definitely give himself away. Li Shimin smiled bitterly. He still couldn't be as calm as an ancient well. He put his arm around Zhang Feng's shoulder and asked, "Then what kind of price did you pay? I believe that the people of Jinla can't think of this, right?" "Hee. You may not be able to guess my answer." Chapter 152. Li Shimin was speechless. He wished he could strangle Zhang Feng to death. This bastard always pretended to be mysterious to keep him in suspense. Couldn't he just say everything he knew in one breath? Would he die? However, salt. Salt that could last the Tang dynasty for 500 years. This was something Li Shimin dreamed of doing. He just didn't expect that there would be such a treasure in the barren land of Jinla. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Li Shimin sighed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Jinla used to be a barren land because of that, but after what you said, didn't it become a land of treasures?" "Treasures?" Zhang Feng smiled. "If I told you that in the south of that place, rice can be grown 3 times a year, would you believe me? If you control the port of Ma'i, you can make all kinds of seasonings and aromatherapy for food. At that time, if the wheat and sorghum of the north could be successfully cultivated as well as the rice of the south, and they could be obtained from that small tribe, how could there be a famine in the Great Tang by then? By then, even if you don't control Tubo, Tuyuhan and other countries, the food of the Tang dynasty will be enough to fill people to death. Other countries will beg you to give them some food." Zhang Feng didn't plan to say this. He was going to keep it as a trump card. When he entered the imperial court, this thing would be the capital for his rise. Although he knew that the imperial court had always been a battlefield, who would dare to oppose him when he controlled the food lifeline of the Tang dynasty? Lao Tzu wouldn't give you any food even if he had it. "You'll starve to death, you bastard." This was Zhang Feng's life-saving trump card. He didn't dare to use it easily. This encounter with the people of Jinla reminded him of the richness of that place. That was why he kept scolding those people who were sitting on a mountain of treasures and starving to death. They deserved to starve to death. They deserved it. Zhang Feng spat again in his heart before he patted Li Shimin's neck in satisfaction. "Brother, just you wait and see." In their eyes, it was indeed poisonous salt. But as long as it's in our hands, it's a treasure trove. Not only will the people of the Tang dynasty have salt to eat, but we can also guarantee the consumption of salt in the surrounding countries. The 500 years I said is a conservative estimate. It's an estimate based on the predictions of all the people in the surrounding countries. Gulp. Li Shimin swallowed hard. His voice was a little hoarse. Brother Zhang, brother, you are my true brother. Let me ask you, what price did you pay? Could it be that you want to marry that dark-skinned princess? You are really a good person. Marry that Darla? No, no, no. Laoli. Lao Tzu was not blind. How could he be interested in such an idiotic woman? He's just sitting there all day, not even letting out a fart. What do I need him for? Li Shimin sighed again, revealing a you-know-what-I-mean look. The look in his eyes was complicated. Although he was trying his best to quibble, Li Shimin understood from the first time he saw Zhang Feng send the two of them off. The princess and Zhang Feng were reluctant to part with each other. Men. Who was not lustful? Men who were not lustful? One was a gentleman who loved openly, and the other was a man who sacrificed his life for the sake of righteousness. Li Shimin suddenly felt that he and Zhang Feng were the same kind of people. They were doing this for the sake of righteousness. Gentlemen. Nothing could be better than this. When we enter the palace, if I let you suffer even a little bit, I, Li Shimin, will pronounce my name backwards. Li Shimin secretly swore. Zhang Feng, on the other hand, was furious. The more furious he was, the more Li Shimin felt that this was likely to be true. In the end, Zhang Feng did not explain. Who cares? Son of a bitch. Was it easy for Lao Tzu? Come on, don't be so upset. Men. Although the Zhenla girl is a little tanned, I've been there before. It's the same even if I blow out the lamp. But to be honest, I saw that girl. Other than being a little tanned, her figure is really good. In Chang'an city, you can't find someone like her. Enough. If you continue, Lao Tzu will get angry with you. Zhang Feng was furious. If he had known, he would not have brought this up. Zhang Feng hurriedly changed the topic. The price I paid this time is actually not much of a price. A cart of poisonous salt and 10 caddies of food. Do as you see fit. Get lost, get lost. Lao Tzu wants to sleep. Zhang Feng was speechless. He did not want to talk to Li Shimin anymore. This old pervert was always staring at women. Lao Tzu was a good youth of the 21st century. If he did not even have this bit of aesthetic sense, then what was the point of living? I'd rather die. Li Shimin was also furious. He stood up with a bang. He did not even care that his robe was torn. He asked in a trembling voice, you said a cart of poisonous salt, 10 caddies of food? Zhang Feng said in a low muffled voice, just 10 caddies. As for what kind of food you give him, it's up to you. I don't care. But you must keep the price as low as possible. Give him a blow and give him a sweet date. Otherwise, if others take advantage of the loophole, or if those people from the Ministry of Revenue and the Ministry of Agriculture find out, you will lose your life. Are my Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Revenue so unreliable and greedy? Chapter 153. Li Shimin was at a loss for words. Although he knew that the Ministry of Revenue and the Ministry of Works were very pedantic, was the monthly payment really that serious? What kind of person would be described by Zhang Feng as someone who valued money as much as his life? Brother Zhang Feng, what you said is a little too much. Although I've heard of the Nashi people, they are a little pedantic, but it's not like what you said, right? Li Shimin still wanted to fight for it. He was definitely burning up. Was this his imperial court? This is the imperial court. Zhang Feng testified for him. Zhang Feng's expression was solemn. Although he was tongue-tied, his face was red, and his head was dizzy. He still knew the seriousness of the matter. Lao Li, we are brothers. That's why I'm saying so many heartfelt words to you. You must remember that the people don't fight with the officials. You must remember this. Although the current emperor is a good emperor, the group of officials around him are a group of people who have lived a life of wisdom. If it involves their interests or makes them feel that you threaten their interests, they will not hesitate to kill you. This is the reason why I asked you to get in touch with Zhang Wuji. He is the Minister of Justice, the Emperor's brother-in-law, and an experienced official. He knows a little about the ways of the world. So get along with Zhang Wuji more. Even if you earn a little less, don't provoke the Ministry of Works and the Imperial Court. If such a day comes, You'd rather hand over all the technology and assets you know, or throw them to Zhangsun Wuji. Run as far as you can. That's the best. The imperial court is a nest of quarrels. Your every move is no different from a flea in their eyes. But once a flea like you touches the foundation of their life, they will slap you to death without hesitation. Zhang Feng said with a heavy heart. Li Shimin was silent. He knew best what the imperial court was like, but he was still very grateful to Zhang Feng for his advice. He only dared to say such words because he truly regarded him as a brother. If it were anyone else who would dare to say such words, who would say that? Although Zhenla looked like a fat piece of meat, once this fat piece of meat made people jealous, he would immediately become a piece of smelly meat that attracted flies and smelly bugs. Thinking of this, Li Shimin wanted to get up and give Zhang Feng a Confucian bow, but he couldn't get up after a long time. After a few jars of wine, they were all drunk. How could he still have the strength to get up? Li Shimin didn't get up anymore. After some jesting he asked, in the middle of Zhenla, there is Nanzhao. It won't be easy to get there. Bai? Not a fart. Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. He roared with bloodshot eyes. Do you have a pig's brain? I just told you to get closer to Lord Zhangsun. It would be best if you could pull in that fearless Cheng Yao Jin. At that time, when you go to Zhenla, you only need one token from the two of them, and it will be enough for you to go unimpeded. And hehe, you can get the goods just by sitting in Chang'an City. Why do you have to go to Zhenla? Do you think it's too easy? Li Shimin was despised again. But Li Shimin didn't care. He asked about the specific industry plan again. That was the extinction plan. The more he talked about this plan, the more excited Li Shimin became. At the lowest price, they would exchange food for poisonous salt mines, and then process it a little. The first salt, which was the poisonous salt, would be sold to the Turks, Tubo, and Tuyuhun. Then they would exchange the salt for food without silver. 1 caddy of salt would be 1 caddy of fine grain. In just a few decades, the entire grassland would be full of big-necked people. At that time they would have no combat power. If they wanted food, they would have to use resources to exchange with the Tang dynasty. Then they would distribute all the cattle, sheep, and horses on the grassland to the people of the Tang dynasty. No one would want them. Nonsense. They were all farmers. Who didn't want to have a mule to farm? At that time, not to mention that there were many cattle and sheep on the grassland, such a big Tang dynasty, with 1 sheep per person, would be distributed to them in minutes. At that time, there would no longer be a sheep, a cow, or a horse on the grassland. Would a people on horseback, without a horse, be worthy of it? And what would the Tang dynasty pay for it? His decision was to put in a little effort, collect the goods, and then throw them to the people who were lining up to ask for them. Done. He didn't even need to carry them on his back. Who wouldn't be willing? The more Li Shimin listened, the more excited he became. In the end, his whole body trembled like a pendulum. Extinction plan. This was really a F***king extinction plan. Moreover, the Tang dynasty didn't even have to pay a penny, but they made a lot of money and firmly controlled all the countries in their hands. Li Shimin almost choked. Brother Zhang Feng, are you really not an immortal? Immortal. Zhang Feng, who was dizzy, laughed and said, have you ever seen any immortal? Li Shimin shook his head. That's it. No one has ever seen an immortal. How can I be an immortal? If I were an immortal, wouldn't it be great if I could turn stone into gold in one breath? Would I have to work so hard? Li Shimin blinked and didn't say anything. He knew he couldn't win. However, this plan caused him to become anxious again. He cupped his fists, staggered up from the ground, and was about to slip away. But he was caught by Zhang Feng. By the way, Lao Li, I almost forgot. Why did you come to me? Did you encounter any difficulties? You should be glad that your father didn't let you enter the big dye vat in the imperial court. But I'm already in it. Li Shimin shouted in his heart. Brother Zhang Feng, you said that the son wants to raise, but the father doesn't wait for him. I'm indeed facing this problem now. My old father, because I fought for the position of the head of the family, and my brothers left the Tang dynasty one after another, so he has always hated me and doesn't like me. He's very similar to His Majesty. I also want to redeem myself. Previously, I was young and impetuous, and my brothers joined forces to mess with me. How could I not resist? Zhang Feng fell silent. Was Lao Li wrong? That was right. He was the same as His Majesty. They just wanted to survive in the cracks. This might be the characteristic of the men in Guanzhong. Where the hell did this tradition come from? For a lousy reputation, to destroy the false title of the head of the family. They didn't even understand the principle of family harmony and prosperity? Did they have to fight to the death? Lao Li, actually, I have no right to ask about your family's affairs, and I don't dare to make decisions for you because every family has its own difficulties. I can only say that all of this today is your family's own fault. Listen to me first. Zhang Feng pressed Li Shimon's shoulder to shut him up, and then said, I don't want to hear about your past. I think it's not as wonderful as His Majesty's. But you have to remember that there's no overnight hatred between father and son. Your original intention is for the family business. This is understandable, but please remember one thing. Admit defeat. You're a father now. Do you want your children to learn from you in the future? Li Shimon was abnormally shocked. He really hadn't thought about this matter. It's the father's fault if the son doesn't teach. He knew this sentence from Old Man Kong. But, I know you have concerns, but you must remember one thing. Think more for the future generations. Admit defeat, and lower your head to your father. I know your personality, and you're not that hard to talk to. Otherwise, do you think I, Zhang Feng, am willing to be friends with anyone? If that's the case, then right now, the streets are filled with my brothers and friends. Please, Brother Zhang Feng, enlighten me. My father's birthday is in a few days. I'm also thinking about how to resolve the conflict between us at this time, but I have no way, so it's like this. How is there no way? Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously and pointed at his head. Think carefully. Do you have a way to resolve your father and son relationship? Chapter 155. Want. If I want, will I expose all my dirty linen to you? Li Shimon shook his head speechlessly. Zhang Feng wanted to slap Li Shimon's head hard to see if he was a blockhead. However, he reached out his hand and stopped in the end. He couldn't reach it and he didn't have the strength. He staggered and fell to the floor. The teacup in his hand was thrown into Li Shimon's arms. In an instant, he looked like he had wet his pants. Li Shimon frowned at the sight. Zhang Feng acted as if nothing had happened and simply laid on the floor. The cold floor made him feel a little less drunk. At this moment, he finally understood. Why did those drunkards prefer to sleep on the floor and the curb instead of sleeping on a bed when they were drunk? It was so damn comfortable. You're a blockhead. To think that I've told you so much before. You didn't listen to me at all. Let me ask you. Why is your father unhappy with you? Are you the one who snatched the position of the head of the family? Wrong. He promised to give it to you, but you snatched it from him. This is his fault. If you can't do it, don't agree. But why can't he get along with you? Is it because I drove my brothers away? Li Shimon asked hurriedly. No. Zhang Feng stamped on the floor randomly. This is all because of one original intention, which is to revitalize the family business. No matter how you become the head of the family, your father hopes that you can lead the family to glory and glory. Let me ask you, are you bringing glory to your ancestors now? Li Shimon was silent. He was deep in thought. Although your family business is nothing in my opinion, if you want to resolve the conflict between you and your father, let me ask you something. Before you came here, were you angry with your father? Yes. Because of the grain storage. That's it. Since he's willing to talk to you about business matters, it means that the conflict between you two can be resolved. As long as he doesn't care what I do, I'll just give him a cold shoulder. Zhang Feng was extremely thirsty. He pointed at his mouth. Li Shimon simply stuffed the spout into Zhang Feng's mouth. Li Shimon was shocked. Imperial father didn't ignore me. Although he was in the depths of the harem, he still cared about the people's livelihood. Then if I were to make all my plans... I got it. Brother, do you mean that if we tell him all our plans and prove that we are working hard for the sake of the family, our conflict will be resolved? If you don't want your father to be angered to death by you at his birthday, then go ahead and say it. Zhang Feng was speechless. I said you have a pig's brain, and you really do have a pig's brain. Where is your business sense? It's really hard for me to imagine how big your business is. How can you ask such a stupid question? Li Shimin was instantly ignited. Alas! Damn you! Is this how you talk to your old brother? Do you look down on your old brother so much? I'm already having a headache, so why don't you come up with an idea? Are you insulting me? Hey, it seems that it's a good thing that you can lose your temper. Zhang Feng smiled embarrassedly. Before this matter is confirmed and the contract is signed with Xinla, as well as the matter regarding Tufan, we have to wait until the contract is signed. Until the deed is done, don't tell anyone. Otherwise, you can go find a crooked tree. What for? Li Shimin was confused. This crooked tree, however, Li Shimin instantly understood. He was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. However, Zhang Feng didn't wait for him to lose his temper and said, "From the way Xinla's people came today, I can see that this is a good day. For the birthday of the person in the palace, you have to seize the time and try to drag the emperor or Zhongsun Wuji down in these 2 days, no matter the cost. In this way, you can sign the contract. It's best if the contract is signed by Tubo, Tuyuhan and Xinla. I'm sure that the main reason why Tubo and Tuyuhan are here is because of this. Are you so sure?" "I'm so sure." Zhang Feng was certain. This matter has been left unchecked for a long time. I think it's already June. Logically speaking, they should be freaking anxious, but they haven't done anything. That means they're waiting for the drought in Longyu Dao. Li Shimin was also shocked. He thought carefully for a while. In his mind, the list of tributes presented by Tubo and Tuyuhan's envoys appeared. He didn't notice it before, but now that he thought about it carefully, it was really more sumptuous than before. Could it be that what Zhang Feng said was true? This time, they wanted to use the birthday of the retired emperor to confirm this matter? How confident are you? Li Shimin grabbed Zhang Feng, who was drinking water, and asked. 80%. If the retired emperor doesn't cause trouble. It was a sure thing. Although Zhang Feng said it was 80%, it was definitely 100%. Because with Zhang Feng's temper, he would never smooth things over. He would always leave a safe place for himself. Li Shimin's eyes flashed a trace of ruthlessness. It seems that Chang'an is going to have a big change in this birthday. Chapter 156. Li Shimin was a little scared, but he was also looking forward to it. He was afraid that if something went wrong during the birthday celebration, he would have to bear the infamy. The infamy of being a murderer, and usurping the throne really made him feel uncomfortable. If he could solve it during the birthday celebration, that would be great. But could this matter be as good as he thought? No. There were always some people who liked to see him fall, and even hoped that he would fall. Li Shimin was very clear about this. Thinking of this, Li Shimin could not help but clench his fists. This incident, everything was gathered at the birthday celebration, which also made Li Shimin feel deeply pressured this time. If he could overcome it, then the overall luck of the Tang dynasty would skyrocket. However, if something were to go wrong, he would be plunged into an irrecoverable trouble. The most important thing was that these plans could not be known to anyone. At this time, a trace of murderous intent flickered in Li Shimin's eyes. Brother Zhang Feng, tell me, I Lao Li, also know about this matter. Everything seems to be very colorful, but it is also very dangerous. If something goes wrong, then the birthday celebration of that person in the palace will be the day that I, Lao Li, will be exterminated. Just tell me how I should deal with this matter, and also solve the conflict between my father and me. Zhang Feng sobered up a little. Actually, this matter still depends on one person. Ooh, Zhongsun Wuji. Lao Li, don't you know that this matter has actually been in our plan from the beginning? Plan? There was a plan from the beginning? Li Shimin immediately became spirited and quickly asked. I'd like to hear the details. Regarding this matter, you've always stood on your own side, but you've forgotten to look at the overall situation. Even until my death, I've been mentioning Zhongsun Wuji. Could it be that you don't understand why I must have you go find Zhongsun Wuji? A buzzing sound was heard. Li Shimin had thought through all his problems. Why did Zhang Feng keep saying that the people should not fight with the officials? Why did he keep stressing that they had to take a small share, and let Zhangsun Wuji and the royal family take the majority? Why did he keep emphasizing it? Now he finally understood. Zhang Feng had been plotting all along. It was a path where he could advance and sweep everything before him, and if he retreated, he could retreat safely. Although he was drunk now, however, his words still shocked Li Shimin. He had thought of all the possibilities. What was Zhang Feng thinking? How did he manage to strategize? Could it be that he had been plotting and weaving a net ever since the first time he fell in love with Long Yudao? He was aghast. He also wanted such an ability. Although he and Zhang Feng were now brothers, he also knew that Zhang Feng was teaching him. He was teaching him everything. During this period of time, Zhang Feng was like a mentor, opening many windows for Li Shimin. However, he was a little hesitant. He fell into Zhang Feng's flowery words and lost his ability to strategize. He also ignored Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng was teaching him how to rule a country. Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng, who was leaning against the wall in a daze. He wanted to ask, but in the end he could not say anything. He struggled to help Zhang Feng up, put together 2 or 3 long stools, and laid him flat on it. At this moment, Zhang Feng woke up. Instead of saying that he was awake, he had not slept all this time. Lao Li, we are brothers, aren't we? Your business is our business. Actually, from the moment I saw your face when you came in, I knew that you were lost. Remember this, the way of business is the way of the wolf. I believe you know about the animal called the wolf, right? Think of yourself as a wolf. Although you are in the middle of a storm, you still have to control the overall situation. This is very important. This is very important for the continuation of the whole tribe. You have forgotten what it looks like. I know. Li Shimin now felt like he had returned to the time when he was a teenager studying. He humbly remembered these 2 words. The way of the wolf. Come on. I'm very sleepy, so you should go back quickly. Don't let your wife wait too long. On the day of your father's birthday, remember to send a waiter to my shop. I'll personally prepare a table of delicacies that you've never tasted before. Hehe, let me tell you another thing. There is no problem that cannot be solved with a meal. If it can't be solved, then 2 meals. The old man is now enjoying his life in peace. This meal is very important. No matter how big the conflict is, I guarantee that your father will call you brother after drinking 3 jars of good wine. Before he finished speaking, Zhang Feng fell into a deep sleep. Li Shimin looked at the sleeping Zhang Feng, and then looked outside. Unknowingly, the outside was already brightly lit, and an oil lamp was lit in the corner of the restaurant. It must be Wei Shiyu's doing, right? He looked at Zhang Feng again, took off his coat and put it on him. Then he said thank you and quietly closed the door and left. As soon as he left the restaurant, he saw Wei Shiyu's face as if he had seen an immortal. Li Shimin glanced at him, his voice extremely cold. You saw it all. I saw it. Forget it. Chapter 157. In the Daming Palace. At this time, Empress Zhangsun was sitting in the imperial study, looking very anxious. Zhangsun Wuji, Wei Zheng, and the others were also waiting for Li Shimin anxiously. Originally, they came to report the news brought back by the spies in Chang'an city and all the prefectures. But they learned that Huang de Gui went to the retired emperor to complain, which made the already tense atmosphere even more tense. It was going to be Li Yuan's birthday soon. Now there was such a big mess. What should they do? The temperature in the evening was obviously lower, but everyone's faces were still full of sweat, and they didn't dare to wipe it off. Although Empress Zhangsun was sitting there with a calm face and reading the emperor's poetry collection, everyone knew that the empress was the most terrible at this time. What time is it? Xiaohuan. After a long time, Empress Zhangsun asked lightly. Her personal maid hurried to the door and looked for a while, and then reported with trepidation, Your Highness, it's the evening now. Still no news of His Majesty. Your Highness, my son Shiyu sent a letter. His Majesty is drunk. Maybe he's on his way back. Wei Zheng was a little guilty, but he still spoke frankly. A person who can control the whole situation and make it so watertight, who also has such a novel salt-making skill, and who can make such good wine and food. Your Excellency Wei, tell me, what do you think of Zhang Feng? This. Wei Zheng was a little confused about the Empress's intention. He exchanged glances with the others, and then said truthfully, Your Highness, we can't catch up with Zhang Feng's knowledge. Moreover, I, Minister Du Feng Shangshu, and Shang Shangshu have all talked about his knowledge. This person's knowledge is basically the best of 100 schools of thought. This old subject was fortunate enough to witness his talent. Although he kept talking about business matters, it seems that this lad has a bright future in the business world. But I heard that this person doesn't like money or these things. Why are there so many people like him? Is he really willing to stay in a rundown tavern? Seeing that everyone was nervous, Empress Zhongsun smiled faintly. This is not the imperial court. This concubine is also a little curious about this child, that's all. Everyone, there is no need to be reserved. After all, His Majesty wants the crown prince to learn the way of ruling the country from him. This concubine is his mother, so I have to know about the crown prince's teacher. Hearing this, everyone could not help but heave a deep sigh of relief. In an instant, everyone started talking. Nyang Nyang, I old Cheng know a little. Brother Zhang Feng. Although he's just a small tavern shopkeeper, his ability to command is something that I can't catch up to. He is a piece of military material. Yes, an unpolished jade. Old Black. When did you reserve him? This old man thinks that his talent and knowledge, as well as his analysis of the current situation, are enough to look down on the world. Our Tang dynasty's imperial court urgently needs the injection of such fresh blood. Only in this way can the imperial court, which is like a pool of stagnant water, have a trace of vitality. If I may be so bold as to ask, what? I haven't made a decision yet. Are you all in a hurry to rope him in? Just as Wei Zheng was about to kneel down and ask the Empress for permission, Li Shimon's voice suddenly sounded behind everyone. Everyone was so scared that they hurriedly knelt down to welcome him. Li Shimon's face was full of unhappiness. He glared at Wei Zheng and the others. Under the worried eyes of Empress Zhongsun, he sat down on the dragon throne. Li Shimon was very surprised. Wei Zheng and Zhang Feng had only met 2 or 3 times. How could such an upright and plain-spoken person like him be willing to lower his noble head and humbly beg the Empress for Zhang Feng's sake? How rare! This was truly a rare sight. From this, it could be seen that Zhang Feng's charm was very strong. I know that all of you are thinking of the Tang dynasty, but let's talk about this later. I have an extremely important matter to discuss now. Empress Zhongsun heard this. She stood up and said, Your Majesty, I'll take my leave first. As the Empress left, everyone's eyes were burning. Everyone knew why the Emperor left the palace this time. They couldn't tell whether the Emperor had solved this matter or not, but from his words, they could tell that he was in control of the whole situation. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Your Majesty, have you found a way to solve the problem with the retired Emperor? Let's not talk about this first. There's another matter, which is more important than this. If it goes well, the Tang dynasty will immediately enter a prosperous era. If it fails, the Tang dynasty will face a disaster. What? A disaster? Everyone was shocked. Was it really so serious? What was it? Did the Turks march southward? No. I just received the news that Longyu Road didn't receive any sign of the Turks' army. There was no one else except for the group of envoys who came to the capital. Everyone was anxious, but they couldn't figure out what was going on. However, Li Shimin heaved a long sigh. I saw the crown prince and princess of Jinla entering a tavern today. Chapter 158. Jinla? Isn't that the small country on the border in the south? Your Majesty, the Jinla diplomatic group is in Honglu Temple today. The envoys from other countries are basically in Honglu Temple, accompanied by Minister Yan Zhen of Honglu Temple. We didn't find the Jinla diplomatic group going out. No. As Fang Xuanling's voice fell, Du Ruhui's eyes darkened. Today, when this old subject received the imperial order to receive the foreign envoys, I found that they brought many people of the same generation. I heard that they wanted to experience the glory of the Tang dynasty, So this old subject let them out of the palace as usual. The more Du Ruhui spoke, the paler his face became. The tavern was a secret in everyone's heart. It was actually discovered by the Zhenla people. And it was even seen by the emperor. This was serious. Du Ruhui was ready to punish, but Li Shimin waved his hand indifferently. This matter is not your responsibility. I was careless. I also didn't expect them to sneak into the tavern, but I found something interesting. Speaking of this, Li Shimin actually smiled slightly. Can you guess how miserable the crown prince and princess of Zhenla were when they came out? Zhang Feng actually robbed them clean. What? Wei Zheng was shocked. If this matter alarmed the Zhenla diplomatic group, the tavern was bound to be exposed. But Li Shimin was still very indifferent. He waved his hand and said, I was also worried before, but when I finally entered the tavern, I found that this kid actually liked that Princess Zhenla. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Zhang Feng liked that kind of person? Oh my god. This taste? Cheng Yaojin smacked his lips. Brother Zhang Feng, you should have said so earlier. If he likes this kind of person, wouldn't it be better if I bought hundreds of huji and sent them to him? Li Shimin glared at him. I was also wrong about this matter. Maybe I was thinking too much? Zhang Feng actually blushed for the first time. Ha 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 ha. Li Shimin wanted to laugh when he thought of Zhang Feng's embarrassed look. Everyone was even more confused, but they felt that it was awesome. She wondered if she should send some women to Zhang Feng to satisfy his cravings. Li Shimin shook his head. Let's not talk about this for now. Actually, these are all my guesses. Don't try to use them to make up stories about him. However, I learned of two important things today. If he hadn't gotten drunk with Prince Zhenla, and if I hadn't poured him a jar of wine and made him drunk, I wouldn't have known that he knew so much. At that time, when I heard about this, I was so shocked that I broke out in cold sweat. Everyone was even more confused. What kind of major event was this? It actually made the emperor, who was always calm and collected, break out in a cold sweat? Your Majesty, are you saying that this matter is related to Zhenla? Zhang Sun Wuji asked softly. Yes. This matter is indeed related to Zhenla. Brother Zhang Feng had a few ideas. He squeezed out all the valuable items from the crown prince and the princess. When the two of them left, they still kept the calligraphy that Zhang Feng gave them as if they were treasures. I knew that something big was going to happen. Sure enough, Zhang Feng has another big plan. Zhenla is in the sea and is surrounded by water on all sides. There are many waterways and, correspondingly, there are also many aquatic products. Let's not talk about these. These are all trivial matters. Also, he said that the spices in that place were used by the aboriginals as firewood after some minor adjustments. These are all important points. The important point is, he found a salt mine in Zhenla. Li Shimin briefly said what he knew in one breath. Although everyone was dumbfounded, they were still waiting for the emperor to speak. Although they wanted to ask, they didn't dare to interrupt the emperor's mood. They had seen the emperor's gloomy face earlier today. Now that he was in a good mood, no one dared to ruin it. Seeing that no one asked, Li Shimin felt a little bored. He picked up Empress Zhangxuan's teacup and drank a mouthful. Do you know how big the salt mine is? We are stupid and don't know. Everyone said in unison. Li Shimin shook his head and didn't blame them. One must know that when he heard about it, he almost fainted from shock. Thinking of this, Li Shimin imitated Zhang Feng. His expression was dignified, but he waved his hand majestically and said, Come on, give me a seat. I'm afraid that you will faint when you hear about this, so be prepared. Everyone was dumbfounded. Wasn't it just a salt mine? Was there a need for this? Although everyone cursed in their hearts, they still thanked him and sat down. At this time Li Shimin said mysteriously, Feng Xianling, tell me about the landscape of Zhenla. Your Majesty, according to the information we got, Zhenla is surrounded by water on 3 sides. There are a total of 21 cities with a total population of about 300,000 people. They are basically distributed in the north, east, and west of Zhenla. As for the south, I heard that it's a barren land where birds and beasts are extinct. Yes. That's the place where birds and beasts are extinct. Minister Feng, how big is that place? Feng Xianling seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, "It's almost twice the size of Chang'an." Twice the size. Li Shimin was secretly surprised. However, he was more convinced of Zhang Feng's words. That place is where the salt mine is located. Zhang Feng said that the salt there is enough for the 5 million families of the Tang dynasty to use for 500 years. Can you guess what price Zhang Feng paid to get it? A cart of salt and 10 caddies of grain. Dong. Chapter 159. The sound of people falling to the ground was within Li Shimin's expectation. The white jade tablets in everyone's hands, and even Cheng Yaojin, fell to the ground. As for those who didn't fall, their faces were pale, and their bodies were trembling. 500 years. What was the effect? Millions of families. 500 years? Wei Zheng and the others couldn't help but groan. Once upon a time, they didn't dare to ask for that. They were only willing to use a little bit of poisonous salt on important days. But one day, the people of the entire Tang dynasty could use it in their sleep? This they thought they were dreaming. Li Shimin was the same. Don't worry about it. When I first learned about this matter, I was also like this. Now you all know that Zhang Feng, you, and I have mastered the art of making salt. What is this? This is the lifeline of the Tang dynasty. We only need to use a little method to get countless things that others think are waste. Then we can refine them a little, and make them into non-toxic and harmless fine salt. What do you think of this business? Your Majesty, there is so much salt, and the art of making salt is not a profound secret art. Moreover, it is so far away. If someone is interested, they can find out about it after a little inquiry. What if Zhenlao or other countries steal it? What do you think? Wei Zheng asked the doubt in his heart. Li Shimin waved his hand. I also asked about this matter, but Zhang Feng only said one sentence. Spread the wealth. The salt collected can't be used. But the amount of salt we can make is not something that anyone can control. We get the first batch of salt and sell it to other countries. Then we quietly refine the salt and sell it to ourselves. Although there are some differences in the color, after grinding, it will be snow white, right? No matter who it is, they won't be able to see the difference. Only we know that it is actually poisonous salt. What do you think of this plan? Li Shimin narrowed his eyes and asked. Vicious. Your Majesty, everyone knows that poisonous salt can't be used. If anyone eats it for more than a year, even a strong man won't be able to lift a stone. Although the refined salt doesn't have that much poison, it's still harmful. If someone were to find out about such a vicious plan, the consequences would be unimaginable. No way. Li Shimin waved his hand confidently. I've asked Zhang Feng about this matter. He said that the first dish of salt is fine. At most, after eating it for 10 or 20 years, one will develop a neck disease. Furthermore, at that time, there will be problems with one's constitution. Everyone was shocked. It would take 10 to 20 years for the problem to be discovered. This is they didn't dare to think about it. He had also thought things through. With Li Shimin's narration, everyone's eyes couldn't help but light up. It seemed that Li Shimin was getting drunk. Or perhaps he was a little tired. He waved his hand and asked Wei Shuyu to come forward. I'm a little tired. You can ask Wei Shuyu about the details. We'll settle the details tomorrow morning. Tomorrow we'll settle this matter and sign the contract for him. What do you think? Everyone looked at each other, then stood up and respectfully sent off Li Shimin. Then Cheng Yaojin grabbed Wei Shuyu's Mingguang armor and asked, Boy, tell us, what did His Majesty and Zhang Feng talk about? If you don't behave, Lao Tzu will beat you to death. Wei Shuyu cried. She looked at Wei Zheng with pleading eyes. Wei Zheng pretended not to see. He said in a low voice, Old Cheng, let's not scare the child. What if the child is frightened? Lao Tzu will fight it out with you. When Cheng Yaojin heard this, his face immediately turned pale. He withdrew his hand embarrassedly, sat on the stool, and waited with his ears pricked up. With Wei Zheng's protection, Wei Shuyu became bolder. She gave a fist salute and said, Uncles, I followed His Majesty to the small tavern today and eavesdropped a little at the door. Zhang Feng's plan. Under the angry stares of the crowd, Wei Shuyu hurriedly stopped showing off. She shrank her neck and said, He means to use these things to exchange for grain. 1 caddy of fine grain, and 1 caddy of salt. F*ck. Did Brother Zhangfeng come up with this plan? What if there's no grain? For example, what about the Turks? Feng Xianling and Du Ruhui's white beards were trembling. They asked hurriedly. Zhangfeng didn't say anything about the Turks, but I think he means to exchange cattle and sheep. Moreover, he said that the horses will only be exchanged for grain, not salt. Hearing this, everyone cursed in unison. F*ck. I knew it. This bastard's plan is vicious. Using horses to exchange for salt. And it's this kind of salt. Ha 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 ha. If Xieli and Tuli know about this, I really want to see their expressions. They're a race on horseback. Without horses, what can they use to fight the Tang dynasty? This is a good plan. But in the end, everyone understood. Because this plan was mentioned by Zhang Feng from the beginning. But they didn't expect that Zhang Feng wouldn't stop until the Turks were dead. They wanted to know how the Turks offended Zhang Feng to make him hate them so much. But let's not talk about Zhang Feng. Which one of them didn't hate the Turks? Under Wei Shiyu's baffled gaze, everyone burst into laughter for a while. Then everyone fell silent. Wei Zheng sent Wei Shiyu away with a solemn expression and said, "Everyone, this matter is settled?" "It's settled. Let's do it." The bold ones are stuffed to death, and the timid ones are starved to death. This contract is signed. Chapter 160. Zhang Feng was very tired. Really tired. He had slept on the floor of the tavern for the whole night. At this moment, with one hand on the wall and the other on his waist, he slowly lay down on the recliner, and felt a little better. "Damn Laoli, don't you know how to put me on the recliner?" Looking at the iron wine pot under his waist, Zhang Feng felt a toothache. He would never get drunk again. Damn it, it was too lonely to be alone. Zhang Feng supported his waist with difficulty, dragged the recliner, and slowly opened the door of the tavern. He hung a sign on the door saying that the tavern was temporarily closed. Then he groaned and lay down under the crooked tree, going back to sleep. Laoli should have used his connections to go to Honglu Temple by now, right? If this matter succeeds, then Lao Tzu's plan will succeed. Wulin, is there a Wulin? Last night, even though he had gotten drunk, he still wanted to drink with her. But the guy on the roof beam, he saw it with his own eyes. He could climb up the roof beam without making a sound, and even point a crossbow at him. It seemed that Lao Li's family was also very deep. Zhang Feng had only seen people with such superb climbing skills on TV and in novels. Wuxia. Could it be that there were also Wulin people in this world? There was also Jianghu? Then he had to think about it carefully. When the time came, would he go to the end of the world with his sword? Or would he give up his power to the world? Just as Zhang Feng was thinking about whether there was a Wulin in this world, and whether he should go to the end of the world with his sword, the sun was already shining on the paper window of Chang'an city. With the sound of 3 gongs, the bustle of Chang'an began. The market is open. The imperial palace. The morning court session ended in a hurry. In Taiji Palace, Li Shimin hurriedly summoned Wei Zheng and the others. How did the discussion last night go? Do you think this contract can be signed? As Li Shimin's voice fell, everyone in the hall couldn't wait to talk about it. Your Majesty, let me tell you. As for this matter, we need to endure it with Jinla. At the very least, we have to wait until they can't wait any longer. No. Old man Fang, this matter can't be delayed any longer. If this drags on, everything will be over. The retired emperor's birthday is coming soon. If we can perfectly resolve this matter before the birthday, wouldn't the conflict between the emperor and the retired emperor be completely resolved? That's inappropriate. Feng Xianling waved his hand. He cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, I thought about it last night and felt that there is something missing in this matter. We still haven't received confirmation from Tubo. If we agree to Zhenla first, what if Tubo survives the drought? Li Shimin knew that there were objections. He smiled faintly and said, Actually, we have also thought about this matter. I didn't sleep at all last night, but I believe that Prime Minister Wei can give everyone a satisfactory answer. He didn't believe that Wei Zheng didn't ask about Wei Shiyu last night. Then he wouldn't be Wei Zheng. Hearing this, Wei Jing stroked his beard. Unlike the excitement of the others, he was extremely calm now. I think this matter is feasible. Last night, my son also told me in detail about the conversation between your majesty and brother Zhang Feng. To be honest, I also felt that there was something missing in the middle. As Duke Xing said, there was an important link missing. However, after thinking about it last night, I went to the secretarial office to check the list of tributes from Tubo and other countries this morning. Then I understood. This time, Tubo's tributes are dozens of times more abundant than before. I think they want to reduce the cost of this matter to the lowest during this birthday, and then get the manufacturing method of the water wheel at the lowest price. Oh. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Li Shimin already knew about this. He waved his hand indifferently. Prime Minister Wei is right about this matter. Therefore, I have decided to summon Prince Zhenla to Taiji Palace later. What do you all think? Everyone's doubts were cleared. Now who dared to object? All of them bowed. Your Majesty, congratulations. Ha ha ha. Someone come, fax Prince Zhenla for an audience. You all also come with me to see this rare grand scene. Li Shimin was in a very good mood. Relatively speaking, he was still a little excited. Originally, these matters were supposed to be handled by the Crown Prince or the Supreme Court. However, this time, because of the importance of this matter, Li Shimin didn't announce it. Instead, he sent someone to inform the Taichung Temple, the Supreme Court, the Guanglu Temple, and the people of the 3 provinces and 6 ministries. A moment later, the officials of the Honglu Temple, the Supreme Court, and the Taichung Temple personally explained the identity of Zhenla. Then the small yellow door hurriedly led the nervous Shiva into Taiji Palace. Along the way, Shiva's eyes stared straight at the heel of the small yellow door in front of him. He didn't even dare to look around. He didn't know the purpose of this summons, but he could guess a little. However, it was also because of this that Zhang Feng's identity became even more mysterious. After entering Taiji Palace, after passing through 3 large doors and countless crescent-shaped doorways, Shiva finally stopped in front of a magnificent house. The small yellow door lightly knocked on the door and said, Your Majesty, Prince Zhenla, Lamar Shiva, requests an audience. Chapter 161. In the Imperial Study of Taiji Palace. How mysterious was it to Shiva and the entire Zhenla before. But now he was about to enter this palace. At this time, Shiva was a little nervous. Very nervous. His palms couldn't help sweating. The door was finally opened from the inside. Shiva slowly walked into the hall with a nervous heart that felt like it was going to jump out of his chest. The hall was not big, but it was no less luxurious than the palace of Zhenla. There was at least one imperial study here, which was the study of the Tang emperors. If this place was already so magnificent, what would the hall be like? Shiva couldn't help but quietly raise his head and quickly glance at the hall. The hall was made of mahogany and gold-rimmed phoebe. The room was full of calligraphy and paintings that he couldn't understand. Presumably, these were all extremely precious paintings of the Tang dynasty. There were 5 officials sitting on both sides of the hall. Behind a table covered in yellow brocade, sat a middle-aged man in yellow robes. He was looking at Shiva with a dignified expression. The moment Shiva glanced at him, he felt as if he had been seen through by that person. Was this the emperor of the Tang dynasty? This momentum. There was no time to think. Shiva entered the door and hurriedly kowtowed. Lama Shiva, the son of Lama Zoya, the king of Zhenla, pays his respects to His Majesty the Tang emperors. Rise and take a seat. Li Shimin's voice was very faint. Shiva couldn't hear any other meaning from it. But he had a feeling. This summons seemed to have something to do with the tavern. Could it be that the conversation between him and Master Zhang was overheard by the Tang Emperor? Or, the person Master Zhang was talking about was His Majesty the Tang Emperors? Then who was Master Zhang? What kind of ability did he have? A little eunuch brought in a chair and placed it next to Cheng Yaojin. Shiva didn't dare to disobey. He could only sit beside the bearded Cheng Yaojin and wait quietly. Seeing this, Li Shimin chuckled and said, Your Highness, this is your first time in the Tang dynasty. You don't have to be so cautious. I'm not a man-eating tiger, so relax. Shiva gave his thanks. Seeing him like this, Li Shimin didn't intend to say anything more and directly said, "Last night, I heard an interesting thing. Zhenla seems to have a lot of treasures. But why is it that in the letter I received from your father he said that you, Zhenla, need the assistance of my Tang dynasty? What does that mean?" It was really Master Zhang. What kind of charm did Master Zhang have? Even the emperor knows so much about it? Could it be? Was it the legendary chamberlain of imperial insignia of Great Tang? Shiva was aghast. He hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, the Tang emperors. Please listen to the details of this matter." He didn't intend to hide it anymore, since the emperor knew he was hiding it. If he angered the emperor, Zhenla wouldn't be able to survive this winter. Now, because of the drought in Tubo, Zhenla had been seriously affected. At this time, most of the people could only rely on fish in the sea and wild vegetables in the mountains to fill their stomachs. If they delayed any longer, winter would come, and Zhenla would be exterminated. Your Majesty, please understand. Because of the drought in Tubo, Zhenla often looted the rich land of our country. Now most of our people can only rely on wild vegetables and fish to fill their stomachs. Your Majesty, the Tang emperors, please have mercy on us. Li Shimin smiled. If he hadn't gone to Zhangfeng yesterday and learned so much, he would have waved his hand and given a lot of money and food. I know about this matter. Do you have anything to say about what happened yesterday? Your Majesty, please understand. Yesterday, Sister Wang and I went to Chang'an City to take a look at the magnificent scenery of Chang'an City. However, we inadvertently saw the front door of a small tavern. A handsome man was sitting in a strange chair and swaying. In front of him was a flagon that seemed to be made of iron. Wasn't it comfortable? Therefore, Sister Wang and I wanted to find out more about it. Then we saw Master Zhang. Hearing this, Wei Zhang and the others had a strange look on their faces. Seemed to be made of iron? What was that? Why didn't Brother Zhangfeng take it out? But among these people, only Zhang Sun Wuji touched his nose and was calm. Li Shimin glanced at him and understood. He asked, "I've heard about the place you mentioned, but don't you want to talk about the treasure mountain?" Shiva was sweating profusely. Your Majesty, please allow this humble subject to explain in detail. This humble subject didn't know about this before, but after Master Zhang's advice yesterday, this humble subject was enlightened. However, although these things are good, they are meaningless to our people. What we need is food. Wei Zhang narrowed his eyes and interrupted Shiva's words very mysteriously. He asked, "Your Majesty, you know the details. Your Majesty, what you want to know is, how are you going to deal with this matter?" How to deal with it? Did Shiva have a choice now? Last night, he thought that the person Master Zhang introduced might be a small businessman. But he didn't know that the person he introduced was the emperor of the Tang dynasty. Didn't he come here to see the emperor, and then solve the famine problem? So, what choice did he have now? Shiva prostrated himself excitedly and said, "Your Majesty, please establish an eternal trade with Zhenla and save our people." Chapter 162. What else could Shiva ask for? Last night, because of this matter, he didn't sleep at all. He discussed with Zhenla's delegation for the whole night, but in the end, they all hesitated. Because if it was an ordinary businessman, how could he have such a great method to solve the crisis in such a short time? And to ensure Zhenla's safety? But now, he only wanted to give everything that Master Zhang said yesterday to the Tang dynasty. He only wanted to let the people live a good life and be free from Tubo's bullying. Li Shimin, Wei Zhang, and the others looked at each other and smiled. It seemed that Brother Zhangfeng had arranged everything well. Li Shimin couldn't help but wave his hand and say, "This matter, just do as you and Brother Zhangfeng said. Someone will discuss the details with you later, but I want a guarantee. Can you make the decision?" He was most afraid of being deceived. He wasn't afraid of Zhangfeng, but he was afraid that a little crown prince would make a decision on his own. If King Zhenla didn't recognize the document of the Tang dynasty when he returned, it would be a little troublesome. Although it was easy to send troops to attack, it would lose Li Shimin's dignity as an emperor. That was why Li Shimin asked. Shiva hurriedly swore, "Your Majesty, please rest assured. The goods you mentioned are useless if they can't be sold. Since His Majesty likes them, I believe that my father will definitely agree to this. Furthermore, before I came here, Father warned me that I must meet His Majesty and save Jinla. However, those stubborn rocks are everywhere in Jinla, especially the poisonous salt. That is something that has caused my Jinla a headache for a long time. Now that the Tang dynasty needs it, how can I refuse? In that case, when the retired emperor's birthday is over, you can go back and bring back King Jinla's handwritten document. Then I'll agree to this matter. Li Shimin waved his hand. This matter was finally settled. Although it was a bit of bullying, it could make money. What he lacked most now was money, although it was a little vulgar. However, money was needed everywhere in the Tang dynasty, and he was already struggling to make ends meet. If it weren't for the fact that he sold the water wheel blueprint for a little bit of money, it would still be a huge expense. Just as Li Shimin was about to leave, Shiwa hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I believe that there is no need to wait until the end of the birthday celebration. Last night, I have already ordered someone to send a message back to Jinla. I believe that before the birthday celebration, Father's handwritten letter will definitely arrive in Chang'an." Alright. That's great. Since that's the case, to express our sincerity, my Tang dynasty will immediately send a caravan to Jinla. If this goes smoothly, I will sign a 100-year trade agreement with Jinla. How about it? Thank you, Your Majesty. Shiva hurriedly bowed. Li Shimin waved his hand, and Shiva left in a hurry. A moment later, Li Shimin asked with a serious voice, "My dear ministers, what do you think of our business relationship with Jinla? I think it's feasible. If the problem of salt is solved, it will be an unprecedented feat for our Tang dynasty. Congratulations to Your Majesty. Congratulations to the Tang dynasty." Everyone cheered in unison. But then Du Ruhui and Zhang Sun Wuji looked at each other and said, "Your Majesty, although the matter with Jinla has basically been settled, once the trade agreement starts, the matter of money. I'm afraid that money is a big problem, but I think it should be enough for the time being. Moreover, this matter will be carried out in Chang'an, and it will definitely attract Tubo's attention. At that time, they won't dare to wait and see anymore. At that time, we can sit back and relax. However, the prerequisite is that before that, we have to shoulder the burden ourselves. This old official is a little worried. Why don't this old official go and ask Brother Zhang Feng?" Du Ruhui and Zhang Sun Wuji said. When Zhang Sun Wuji mentioned Zhang Feng, Li Shimin couldn't help but ask playfully, "Zhao Guogong, what does Brother Zhang Feng's pot look like? Have you seen it before?" "No." "What pot?" "I don't know." Zhang Sun Wuji played dumb in a very bored manner, and this caused everyone to twitch their lips. They wondered if they should go to Zhang Feng's tavern next time to find a treasure. After everyone left, Empress Zhangsun came out from the back door of the screen. She looked at Li Shimin and asked worriedly, "Second brother, isn't this a little inappropriate? Although I don't know much about state affairs, this matter is still unknown. Is it really as magical as Zhang Feng said? Are you so sure? Guanyin maid, do you think I still have a way out?" Now money is needed everywhere in the Tang dynasty, whether it's the military expenses at the border or other aspects. This salt is extraordinary. If I don't have it in my hands, I won't be at ease. What's more, Jinla has a huge amount of salt. Haven't I mastered the art of making salt now? Then think about it. After this year and next year, the Tang dynasty will really enter an era that I dare not imagine. Isn't this what we want? Isn't this what all the people in the world want? Empress Zhangsun didn't say anything. Looking at Li Shimin's back, which was no longer tall and straight, she felt sad and couldn't help crying. "Second brother, I understand." Chapter 163. Zhang Feng was very relaxed. During this period of time, Lao Li seemed to be very busy with Zhen Le's matter. He was so busy that he didn't even pass on the news. But where was Chang'an City? It was right under the emperor's feet. Even the slightest movement of the grass in the wind would be closely watched. These simple people from Guangzhou were scared. They had enough of the precarious life and were tired of war. Therefore, the news that the imperial court had signed a trade agreement with Zhenla spread throughout Chang'an city as if it had grown wings. Zhang Feng, even if he didn't leave the tavern, he could still hear all the so-called gossip from the mouths of the children squatting at the entrance of the tavern. Looks like old Li's ability to get things done is not bad. He really knows how to get the Chang'an family involved. Not bad, he has a bright future. Zhang Feng sipped a mouthful of wine happily and fanned himself. Beside him, there were 3 dirty half-grown children who were rubbing his shoulders or rocking the recliner. That was a very comfortable life. As long as he was willing, he only needed to pay a copper coin for these children to massage his shoulders for a day until they dislocated his shoulders. Brother Zhang Feng. Brother Zhang Feng. I have the latest news. The latest news from the Imperial Palace. At this moment, a topless child with snot bubbles on his nose ran over excitedly. A pair of straw sandals that couldn't be any worse had already been flung off to God knows where while running, and the straw rope of the other straw sandal had been dragged out for half a meter. Zhang Feng was interested. He squinted and asked, "Dog, what did you ask? If you really get the answer, I will not only give you 10 copper coins, but also give you an old piece of clothing." Hearing this, the dog was so excited that he was about to kneel down and kowtow. Zhang Feng kicked him and scolded jokingly, "Come on, don't do this. A man must remember that you can kneel to heaven and earth and your parents, but you must never bend your knees easily. This is the dignity of a man." Zhang Feng knew that this set of advanced words would not be understood by the children in this feudal era, who could not even fill their stomachs. However, it did not matter. Ehe. Although he had been kicked, Gozi was still laughing excitedly. His black teeth made Zhang Feng unable to look straight at him. When the 3 little fellows behind him heard that it was 10 copper coins, their eyes widened like copper coins. Seeing this, Gozi bared his teeth and waved his fist. "Brother Zhang Feng, I just heard from the eunuch who was washing the toilet in the pure fragrance workshop that someone from Zhenla's side came here yesterday. I heard that it was King Zhenla who personally came to the Tang dynasty to sign a contract. I heard from His Majesty that our good days are coming," Gozi said excitedly. It was as if they were looking at the beautiful scenery of a golden age. Hearing this, Zhang Feng nodded. He took out half a string of money and threw it to the dog. "Scram, scram, scram. Go and take a bath for me. It stinks." There were at least 50 coins and half a string of money. In an instant, the 4 children smiled brightly like flowers. They thanked Zhang Feng gratefully and squatted on the ground to divide the coins one by one. After that, Gozi sucked his snot bubbles and stared at Zhang Feng with a silly smile. Zhang Feng pointed at the tavern with his palm leaf fan speechlessly. "Go, it's on the counter of the tavern. Go and get it yourself." Those were Lao Li's clothes. Zhang Feng did not mind giving them away. These were simple and poor children who were still slaves. Basically, Zhang Feng's source of information depended on them. As for these little fellows, they basically relied on Zhang Feng's leftovers and the money he gave them to feed their entire family. Regarding this, Zhang Feng did not have the slightest bit of psychological burden. He was a modern man. He could not bear to see people like this. Especially these children. Basically, they were the same age as his younger brother in his previous life. Looking at them holding the money and running back happily, Zhang Feng smiled knowingly. "Brother, are you okay over there? Remember to take good care of Lao Tzu's parents." "Brother." The sudden call of brother made Zhang Feng tremble. He rubbed his eyes and looked over. Only then did he see Gozi holding the clothes in his hands and looking at him in shock. Zhang Feng's eyes moistened. Then he shouted impatiently, "What's wrong? Why aren't you leaving? Are you waiting for Lao Tzu to cook for you?" "No, brother, this clothes. If you take it to the pawn shop, it can be sold for at least 30 coins. Scram, scram, scram. That was thrown away by someone else. I said I'll give it to you, so I'll give it to you. Lao Tzu, I don't lack that money." Gozi left. However, he no longer had his usual cheeky smile. Instead, he shrugged his shoulders. When he turned the corner, he even knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times to Zhang Feng. "Brother, I, son Gozi, will repay your life-saving grace with my sister's life in the future." Although the money and the shabby clothes were really nothing to him, he still had a lot of money. But what he didn't know was that these youths that he had inadvertently saved out of boredom today, when he set foot on that land 10 years later, these youths had really risked their lives to save him from a pile of corpses. Among them, even though Gozi's lower body was chopped off, he still used his mouth and hands to save the unconscious Zhang Feng. Chapter 164. The small tavern was still as lonely as it was in the beginning. Rich people looked down on such a vulgar and dilapidated place, and poor people could not enter. On the contrary, the entrance of Zhang Feng's shop became a paradise for wild children. When they had nothing to do, these children would gather beside Zhang Feng and listen to his stories. They knew that Zhang Feng loved cleanliness, and it was summer now. Before these children came, they would go to the river outside the city to wash themselves clean before coming. They even wanted to peel off the layer of skin on their bodies. Sometimes, when they caught some snakes in the wild, some wild game, or even a big turtle by the river, Zhang Feng would make a pot of tempting delicacies as if he was performing magic. And they would be able to get a delicious meal and a few copper coins. Sometimes, when Zhang Feng was happy, he would even reward them with an ingot of silver. Everyone did not fight for it, and just sat on the ground to share the spoils. The people of the Tang dynasty were also strange. Zhang Feng felt that it was very strange. Even if one of them caught a longworm snake, in a large group of people, if you gave him money, he would share it equally with his friends. This kind of spirit made Zhang Feng very touched. Sometimes, when there was no information that Zhang Feng needed for a day, they would climb up the treetops or squat at the city gate. They would stare at the city gate with their eyes wide open to see if there were any high-ranking officials, nobles, or prostitutes. The bearded man came. Sometimes, when there was no information at all, these children would even squat in the corner and cry. Perhaps this was a kind of spirit. It was a spirit that modern society had forgotten. However, Zhang Feng did not care. No amount of gold could buy his happiness. Anyway, he was not worried about making money. With the money that Lao Li and the others gave him, plus the money that he robbed Prince Zhenla last time, even if he spent it in 8 lifetimes, he would not be able to spend it all. Therefore, he was also very generous. Business? Business? My ass. If it were not for Lao Li and the others, Lao Tzu would have closed the door and slept. Even if someone came because of his reputation, there was only one word. Get lost. Lao Tzu did not serve him. However, for this group of children, now Zhang Feng was more like the king of children. These children surrounded Zhang Feng and relied on him for food. Zhang Feng knew this, but he didn't care. If he could help one person, he would help one person. It was too boring. Most importantly, it was too boring. Brother. Big brother Zhang Feng. I have good news. Just as Zhang Feng was half awake from his daydream, a sturdy young man hurriedly ran up to him. Seeing that Zhang Feng had woken up with a start, Gozi was furious. He threw the cattail leaf fan in his hand to a skinny monkey next to him, then went up and hammered him. Damn it! Can't you see that brother Zhang Feng is sleeping? Were you chased away by a ghost? *CK your mother. I'll kill you. Doggy. Zhang Feng rubbed his sleepy eyes and ordered Gozi to leave. That young man seemed to know that he had been too rash. Although his clothes were already tattered from the beating and were now in tatters, he still licked his lips and apologized. Zhang Feng was speechless. Was he such a lowly person? All right, tell me. What did you find out? Brother, I heard the night watchman say that the Emperor Emeritus's birthday is on the day of the Dragon Boat Festival. Tubo's people seem to want to ask the Emperor for help today. Oh. Tubo finally couldn't take it anymore? Zhang Feng curled the corner of his mouth slightly. This group of monkeys was very smart. They must have seen that the Tang dynasty had signed a trade contract with Zhenla, so they couldn't take it anymore. But they couldn't take it anymore? If the emperor wasn't an idiot, Tubo would definitely be cheated to death this time. Anything else? Zhang Feng asked with interest. No. By the way, I heard that Tuyuhan's people are also following behind. I don't know what they want to do. Zhang Feng nodded. Finally, he fumbled in his clothes and threw the most expensive silver ingot to Gozi. He stared at him and said, Go and apologize to Zhu Zi. Why did you hit him? Today, you'll get half of your money as a punishment. Oh. Gozi pursed his lips and didn't care. He waved his hand. In an instant, 8 half-grown children squatted on the ground and used the spindle on the ground to throw the silver ingot. Then they divided the silver ingot bit by bit. In the end, they couldn't divide the silver ingot and ran away with Gozi. They seemed to be going to the bank to exchange for copper coins. Looking at Gozi's new straw sandals and new linen clothes, Zhang Feng yawned and turned over to continue watching. But a moment later, he was so hot that he rolled over and cursed. He went into the tavern while cursing. Damn kid, he's so greedy for money. Now that he has money, he doesn't care about Lao Tzu anymore? Although he was cursing, Zhang Feng didn't care at all. It was just 10 taels of silver. But, even if he didn't care, someone else did. Just as Zhang Feng was about to close the door of the tavern, a smelly man like a black tower blocked the door with a plop. He asked in shock, "Shopkeeper, did you lose this silver ingot?" As he spoke, the iron-towering man's hands trembled as he lifted a piece of flattened silver ingot and some scattered pieces of silver high up in front of Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng scratched his head. "Who are you? Why do you have the silver ingot that I gave to Gozi? If you dare to take it, believe it or not." Without waiting for him to finish, the man like an iron tower knelt on the ground and asked in a choked voice, "Shopkeeper, did you really give this money to Zhu Zi?" This was a simple Tang person. Zhang Feng hurriedly tried to help the man up, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't help the man up. Zhang Feng was so angry that he pointed at the man and shouted, "I gave it to him. What's wrong? Are you trying to extort money?" "No, benefactor. I am Zhu Zi's father. Previously, Zhu Zi brought back money from time to time. I didn't know where he got it from. Today, I finally know. But the money today is too much. I don't deserve it. Get lost. I gave this money to Zhu Zi and the others, not to you. If you don't want it, Lao Tzu won't give it to you. Give it back to Zhu Zi. Otherwise, Lao Tzu will report you to the authorities and put you in jail." After saying that, Zhang Feng didn't even bother to close the door. He dragged the recliner and walked into the kitchen, ignoring the man. The man choked with sobs. His whole body trembled as he kowtowed a few times. Then he gently wiped the place where he just knelt, closed the door and left. "Benefactor, thank you." Chapter 165. The man left. Zhang Feng didn't have much psychological burden. It was still the same sentence. This was a business deal. He thought it was worth it, and he would give as much money as he wanted. He never cared about money. This thing, he couldn't bring it with him when he was born, nor could he bring it with him when he died. If he didn't use it, what should he do? Throw it away? He wasn't stupid. Moreover, he knew that Zhu Zi's father was a man with a hard life. Although the news this time was useless, it was enough to hear about it. Moreover, he really couldn't bear to see this. He did all this for no other reason than to help as much as he could within his power. This was enough. As for what others said, he couldn't care less. Coming out of the kitchen, he prepared a big bowl of noodles, opened the door, squatted at the door of the small tavern, and ate it noisily. However, at this moment, a pair of dark little hands held an egg and held it in front of Zhang Feng. Accompanied by the sound of swallowing saliva, she said charmingly, "Brother, Mother said that this egg is for you." Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He raised his head, sucked the noodles into his mouth, and looked carefully. An 8-year-old little girl wearing tattered clothes, and even some clothes that didn't cover her body, was looking at him timidly. Zhang Feng's nose twitched. How could he still eat? Looking at the egg, which was still warm, Zhang Ziyan smiled. Looking at the little girl, he asked, "What's your name?" "I don't have a name. My mother called me Steamed Bun. She said that it's easy to raise." The woman's timid words made Zhang Fengji deeply shocked. Looking at a woman hiding in the dark not far away, Zhang Feng touched Steamed Bun's head. Seeing that she was still staring at his bowl and swallowing saliva, Zhang Feng asked, "Steamed Bun, are you hungry?" "I'm not hungry. Steamed Bun only had a bowl of porridge yesterday. Let's go. Brother will treat you to a big meal." Zhang Feng was speechless. What the hell was he talking about? He couldn't say anything. He threw the bowl away and carried the steamed bun into the tavern. Then he put her on a stool and said, "Don't run around. No matter who comes, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, or I will get angry." Oh. Steamed bun seemed to be very scared. He looked timidly at the woman at the corner of the street outside the door, and the grimacing youth. He sat quietly at the table and swallowed his saliva as he smelled the fragrance in the air. After a while, Zhang Feng came in with a big bowl of rice, a big bowl of braised pork, and a lot of scattered braised meat and other messy things. He put them on the table and said, "Steamed bun, Big Brother will treat you to a meal. Eat quickly. If you can't finish it, you have to bring it back." She would not be able to finish the steamed buns even if she was stuffed to death. However, he still took out everything that could be taken out of the store. Not for anything else, but to be happy. An egg. After the emperor listed chickens and ducks as important objects of protection, these things were very precious. How could ordinary people be willing to eat them? However, she still brought it over. In fact, he saw Zhu Zi, his father, and his mother. Although Zhu Zi's father pretended that nothing had happened and walked past him, his eyes could not fool Zhang Feng. She was Zhu Zi's sister. In a slave's family, the old hen that laid eggs was their lifeblood. They could not bear to part with it. Only this egg was the only gift they could give. Looking at the steamed bun wolfing down the food, Zhang Feng looked at her and smiled until he cried. Steamed bun foolishly wiped his lips with the back of his pitch-black hand. He took out the egg from his pocket and handed it to Zhang Feng. "Big Brother, you eat too. Big Brother is not hungry. Didn't you see that Big Brother just ate a big bowl? His stomach is so full that it flipped over." As he spoke, steamed bun forced the egg into Zhang Feng's hand. "Big Brother, eat it tonight. Or eat it during the New Year. Steamed bun has never eaten this before. I heard that this is very delicious. Okay, Big Brother will keep it for the New Year." Steamed bun ate very quickly. Zhang Feng looked at steamed bun carefully. The hand holding the egg was so hot that it was trembling. He had been at a loss before. But today he knew what he had to do. He had to set up a cooperative. If Lao Li did not come tomorrow, Lao Tzu would beat the drum and look for him all over the city. Damn it, no one could stop Lao Tzu from setting up the cooperative this time. Even if the emperor came, Lao Tzu would not be able to get it out. Zhang Feng was excited. He had mentioned the cooperative before. It seemed that Zhang Sun Wuji was very concerned about it. Even the emperor was very concerned about it. However, for some reason, there had been no movement. Perhaps it was preparing for Jinla and the Emperor Emeritus Christmas? But Zhang Feng could not wait any longer. There were so many people hungry now. He could not bear it. He had to set up a cooperative. Otherwise, with the current economic situation of the Tang dynasty, even if the Yu8 Jinla opened up a mutual exchange, it would be useless. No money. And in this way, would Tubo be a vegetarian? If you don't have money, others will take care of it for you. How would you make any money? Not only that, all the plans he had made before would be ruined. A single egg suddenly made Zhang Feng feel that something was wrong. Steamed bun ate very quickly. As if she was afraid that she would disturb Zhang Feng by smacking her lips, she basically swallowed when eating. Her small face was red. Zhang Feng smiled and rubbed steamed bun's head. He watched her burp and put down the small bowl. Zhang Feng put down a full bowl of rice and a bowl of vegetables and roared, "Zhu Zi, get over here." Chapter 166. Zhu Zi heard this. He couldn't stand it anymore. Looking at his sister eating the meat bite by bite, he was greedy. His saliva was like water in a smelly ditch, flowing all over the floor. Seeing Zhang Feng shouting, he hurriedly ran to the door of the restaurant, but he refused to enter. "Brother Zhang Feng, hey. Hey your ass. Come, bring the food back for your sister. This food is rotten, it's useless." Zhu Zi was stunned. Looking at the table full of delicious food, he stopped drooling. He thought that Zhang Feng was angry. He was about to scold his sister. "Steamed bun. See how I'll deal with you when we get back. I only asked you to send an egg. How did you provoke brother Zhang Feng? Shut up. If you dare to talk, Lao Tzu will beat you to death." Zhang Feng scolded impatiently. Steamed bun is my sister now. If you dare to bully her, I'll break your leg. Take the food and go. Lao Tzu wants to take a nap. How could Zhu Zi not know Zhang Feng's temper? He had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Once he decided on something, he wouldn't change it even if he died. Hearing Zhang Feng's words, Zhu Zi's parents, who were eavesdropping outside the door, hurriedly knelt in front of the restaurant and cried in grief. Shopkeeper, we are your... All right, get up, don't kneel. Lao Tzu isn't dead yet. I'm sleepy, let's go. Also, I'll acknowledge steamed bun as my sister. Since you feel bad, then this meal will be my acknowledgement gift. Zhu Zi, get the wine. Zhu Zi laughed silly. Brother Zhang Feng actually wanted to acknowledge his sister as his sister? This was a blessing from the heavens. Zhu Zi's parents kowtowed at the entrance of the restaurant again. Zhang Feng was speechless. The two of you, are you trying to send me away? If you continue to kneel, I'll change my mind. Zhu Zi, steamed bun, take the food away. Don't block my door. Alright, take your wine too. Originally, Zhang Feng wanted to open a jar of wine, or ask Huayu Zhu Zi's father to drink a bowl of wine. But looking at his cowardly appearance, Zhang Feng was not in the mood, and simply sent them off. Take these as my payment for the eggs. As Zhu Zi's father knelt down and closed the door for Zhang Feng held the egg and spoke slowly. After a while, it was quiet outside the door. Zhang Feng sighed deeply and stared at the egg in a daze. However, at this moment, creaking sounds could be heard. The door was pushed open. Zhang Feng habitually roared. Motherf ***, are you done yet? Lao Li? Why are you here? He was about to scold her. But when he turned around, it was actually Li Shimin, whom he had not seen for many days, who appeared at the door. Zhang Feng immediately shut his mouth. What's wrong with you? Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng speechlessly. He was scolded before he even entered the door. Although he knew that he was not being scolded, he was still speechless. Chapter 167. Li Shimin was silent. Before he came, in these few days, the trade between the Tang dynasty and Jinla had already begun. After King Jinla received the news, he rushed from Jinla to Chang'an city in 6 days and signed a 100-year contract with him. Although Li Shimin wanted to sign the contract for a few hundred years in one go. However, he also knew that King Jinla was an old fox. If he spoke too harshly, it would make him suspicious. Therefore, he was only willing to sign a 50-year contract at first. However, King Jinla pestered him and finally settled on a 100-year contract. Just like that. The Ministry of Works did a detailed calculation on the list of goods brought by King Jinla this time. King Jinla had completely gone crazy. Or perhaps he was afraid of starvation. Almost all of Jinla's troops were mobilized to deliver the goods. If it weren't for King Jinla swearing and using himself as a hostage to guarantee that they were only here to deliver the goods, Li Shimin would have already sent his troops. And it was precisely because of King Jinla's madness. Li Shimin felt the pressure. The people from the Ministry of Works calculated for 2 days and 2 nights. The final amount was as high as 50 million taels of gold. This put Li Shimin in a difficult position. Now he was so poor that he even had to scrimp when he could. He thought that he could struggle for a while with the 40 million taels of gold, but now he was dumbfounded. He didn't even have enough money for the first batch of goods. If he didn't think of a way quickly, when people came and asked for money, he would be embarrassed. Not only would it be embarrassing, but King Jinla might also do something stupid in his anger. Money. When it was time to use it, he regretted not having enough. Fortunately, King Jinla wanted food, but Li Shimin also knew that there would be a locust plague next year. How could he be willing to give? After arguing for a long time, the final agreement was that the Dragon Boat Festival would be half money and half food. However, even so, Li Shimin's Dragon Boat Festival would not be peaceful. Seeing that his father's birthday was about to be celebrated, he encountered this problem again. He originally wanted to resolve the conflict during his father's birthday, and use this matter to make his father happy. Now, it was already a blessing from the heavens that the old man was not sent away. In the end, Li Shimin avoided Tubo and Tuyuhun's requests to see him, and quietly left the palace to seek advice from Zhang Feng. But looking at it now, what kind of idea was this? Brother Zhang Feng, I know how you feel right now, but calm down first. Calm. I'm very calm. I've never been so calm. Zhang Feng was angry. Did this guy think that he was being impulsive? With a wave of his hand, he interrupted Li Shimon's nagging and said, Lao Li, believe it or not, I know why you came to see me today. Believe it or not. I don't believe it. Li Shimon shook his head like a rattledrum. Fine. I knew you wouldn't believe it. Zhang Feng rolled up his sleeves and said, Actually, I do know why you're here. You're here because of Jinla's matter, right? And I also know that Jinla was anxious this time. For the first time, he gave you something that you couldn't eat, right? You don't have enough money. How did you know? Li Shimon's eyes were as wide as copper coins. Asked. He had never mentioned this matter before. Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. How did I know? I know everything. Do you believe it or not? I don't believe it. Li Shimon curled his lips. Previously, he really believed that Zhang Feng had guessed it, but now he knew that this guy was definitely guessing. Otherwise, how could he know what happened in the palace when he was in the tavern? Zhang Feng's mood recovered at this time. He took a jar of the strongest wine from the counter, took out 2 big bowls, filled them, and handed them to Li Shimon, saying, This matter has spread like wildfire in Chang'an city, and I was the one who instigated this matter. How could I not know? Let me tell you. King Jinla came to see the emperor this time, right? Don't say that Zhangsun Wuji didn't inform you about this matter. Did King Jinla go crazy and use the power of the whole country to bring all the people who could sell it? Li Shimon was stunned. How did you know? Hey. This is habitual thinking. Think about it. If you were afraid of being poor, and suddenly someone said that the place where you sleep is full of treasures, wouldn't you want to tear down that piece of land and sell it to that person? It seems that this is the truth. Li Shimon's face slowly became dignified at this time. Everything was exactly as Zhang Feng said. Brother Zhang Feng, to tell you the truth, I also have a deal with Jinla, but this guy wants to sell Jinla to me. I don't have enough money now, and the contract has been signed. If I go back on my word, I'm afraid that I'll do something desperate. Li Shimon stopped pretending. He hurriedly asked, What should we do now? If this matter is messed up, King Jinla will say it to the emperor, and I will be completely finished. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimon with some contempt. Now you know how to be anxious? What were you doing earlier? Don't you know that haste makes waste? It's not that I'm anxious. It's that bastard King Jinla who cheated. Otherwise, who would know that he brought all the things he could sell? This time I'm in big trouble. King Jinla wants to show off his power to the Tang dynasty. No. There's still hope. Zhang Feng smiled faintly. He pointed to the wine bowl. As long as you finish this bowl of wine, I'll tell you the way. Li Shimon glanced at the big bowl and smelled the pungent smell of wine. Before he drank it, his eyes were stung by the smell of wine. His eyelids couldn't help but twitch. This guy wanted to take revenge. That night, was it not enough that I personally put on clothes for him and made his bed for him? In this world, even the empress didn't have such treatment. However, Li Shimon couldn't say it out loud. He said faintly, Don't think that I don't know. You said it was a cooperative, didn't you? As soon as I came in, you wanted to trick me into drinking and get me drunk, right? Chapter 168. Li Shimon looked at Zhang Feng with disdain. Zhang Feng could not help but go crazy. Why did he suddenly become enlightened? This was not right. Zhang Feng was a little frustrated. Hey. Who told you to drink? I see that you are addicted to alcohol every time you come, so I let you drink a little to relieve the heat. Why are you treating my good intentions as ill intent? How could Li Shimon believe him? He saw everything that Zhang Feng did just now. How could he not know what Zhang Feng was thinking? He was purely looking for someone to vent his anger on. As the ruler of a country, how could he not see through this? Forget it. I know you are upset, but don't be like this, okay? Come, I am also in a bad mood. Let's drink together. All right, I will give you face and drink a bowl. Let's make it clear that this wine is on you. Lao Tzu has no money. Zhang Feng mumbled. He picked up the bowl of wine and took a big gulp. The spicy wine flowed down his throat like a knife, spreading from his mouth to his stomach. The burning sensation made Zhang Feng and Li Shimon's cheeks instantly red like blood. Ha, good wine. Li Shimon patted the wine jar, his eyes flickering. This wine, when I drank it before, it was like water. Why is it so strong this time? Zhang Feng curled his lips. How could it not be strong? This was unblended raw wine. Drinking too much of it would kill him. He was also feeling depressed and wanted to find someone to vent his frustrations on. However, this time, Old Li was too cunning. This time he failed miserably. Zhang Feng took the opportunity to push the wine jar. This jar of wine was originally prepared for your father. Didn't you want to show your filial piety to your father? Take out this jar of wine at the birthday celebration. I guarantee that you will be in the limelight. Li Shimon's eyes widened. This wine would be in the limelight? This was something that could kill someone, all right? The wine of the Tang dynasty was generally drunk like water. From fermented glutinous rice, to grape wine, to flour wine and fruit wine, which kind of wine was so strong? The army was all gulping down wine and eating meat. This was the first time they drank it. If they drank it the way they did before, then a bowl of wine would be enough to send more than half of those old fellows away. Li Shimon waved his hands. No. I appreciate your kind intentions, but I'll pass on the wine. Zhang Feng pursed his lips. Let me tell you something about this wine. The bowl of wine you drank just now is equivalent to a jar of the best wine in the Tang dynasty. How much have you drunk? This is raw pulp without blending. You still say you didn't scam me? You're giving this to me? Li Shimon's eyes were red. Zhang Feng pursed his lips and ignored him. Actually, this wine was meant for you to show off at your birthday. I didn't say that you were going to drink it. What is this wine? It's a commodity. It's meant to let your father see something beyond his understanding. It's not meant for you to take it out and drink it. I'm taking it out today to show you the value of this wine. Although I don't know what kind of imperial wine the emperor drinks, I can guarantee that this thing is definitely dozens of grades better than the imperial wine. I was going to give you a dozen jars, enough for you to show off, but since you don't want it, I'll keep it for myself. I want it. Who said I don't want it? Li Shimon's eyes were red. He hurriedly hugged the wine jar in his arms and refused to let go. Zhang Feng only pursed his lips. Li Shimon sealed the wine and asked carefully, Brother Zhang, you're saying that this wine is a commodity to be used at the birthday? But if you don't drink it, are you going to take it out to show it off? And then push the matter of the cooperative to the public? Huh. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimon in surprise and looked him up and down. Not bad. You can draw inferences from one case? Not bad. You've improved, Lao Li. Although Li Shimon didn't know what he meant by drawing inferences from one case, he still enjoyed Zhang Feng's praise, although he felt a little uncomfortable. Li Shimon saw that Zhang Feng didn't speak, so he hurriedly asked, By the way, Brother Zhang, tell me about it. How should this cooperative be implemented? You should at least let me be prepared, right? When it came to business, Zhang Feng's expression became slightly dignified. This cooperative, as I told you before, is to stimulate economic recovery. It's a huge system. If it's used well, it's possible to benefit one party, or even the entire Tang dynasty. But if it fails, Lao Li, you have to be prepared for failure. Losing your head would be a light punishment. Zhang Feng was very direct. Li Shimon also knew the importance of it. He sighed and said, I saw what you did outside just now. Do you think I don't want them to have clothes to wear and food to eat? I want to, but my ability is limited. If the cooperative is really as powerful as you said, then even if I have to be smashed to pieces, I will push it out. Moreover, I believe that many people, especially those rich businessmen and officials, will like to see this. After all, a lot of land in the Tang dynasty is in their hands. For example, Lord Zhangsun. I heard that the land in his hands is at least 1,000 mu. So, when you talked about the cooperative last time, I already had this idea. Chapter 169. The economy of the Tang dynasty was basically in the hands of the government, which caused many people to have no land to farm, thus creating such a vicious cycle. Li Shimin also wanted to change, but such a reform was easier said than done. The Tang dynasty was poor. What reward could he give to the meritorious officials? Other than land, what else could he give? Nothing. He suddenly realized that he, Li Shimin, was a pauper, penniless. Last time, when Zhang Feng mentioned the cooperative, Li Shimin could not help but see a glimmer of hope. However, he considered many factors, including the Tubo Tuyuhan incident and the Jinla incident, so he had to suppress it. But now, it had reached the point where he had no choice but to reveal it. He had no money. Li Shimin was poor. Now, after paying the money to Jinla, he had no money at all. How terrible was this for an empire? Sigh. Laoli, don't be so pessimistic. I know what you're thinking, but if the emperor doesn't say anything, no matter how good you and I are, we can't shake this dragon. Cooperative? Now you know why I asked you to cooperate with Lord Zhongsun, right? Without the support of the government, do you think a businessman like you dares to do such a thing? Your head will be chopped off in minutes. Li Shimin was silent. The status of a businessman was very low. When they met the government, they had to greet them, or they would be beaten. Not to mention such a big move. If it were a normal businessman who would dare to do such a thing, they would have been king in prison to enjoy their lives. This was the status of a businessman. At this time, he also understood why Zhang Feng kept urging him to cooperate with the government. He would rather ask for less money and profits. Even if he withdrew his investment at the right time, he would still contact the government. If you don't have any connections with the government, what do you want to do? You're just daydreaming. Thinking of this, Li Shimin asked, Brother Zhang Feng, what do you think the emperor will do? What will he do? Zhang Feng stroked his chin. Originally, we didn't dare to talk about this matter. This is something that could cost us our lives. You'd better tell your men to keep their mouths shut. I don't want to lose my head. Li Shimin raised his eyebrows. He nodded. He knew that Zhang Feng was talking about Wei Shuyu. This brat, I'll transfer him away from my side some other day, this troublemaker. Don't worry. Those who can come out with me are all my children and nephews. You can rest assured. Hearing this, Zhang Feng lowered his voice and said to Li Shimin, Actually, this is nothing. I believe that if King Jinla is not a fool, he will definitely make the Tang dynasty suffer this time. Why? I heard that the emperor has already resolved this matter. It doesn't seem to be as difficult as you said, right? Not that difficult. Zhang Feng smiled. Let me tell you. I reckon that the emperor's treasury has long run out of money. Think about it. How many years has it been since the Tang dynasty was founded? How can there be any money left after years of war? This time, I reckon that the current emperor is also holding on, right? After today, I believe that King Jinla will make a big move, and Tubo will also make a big move. Li Shimin was shocked. How can Tubo make trouble? Did you see something? Zhang Feng smiled and did not answer him. Instead, he continued. Tizke, Jinla is such a fat piece of meat. Who wouldn't covet it? Besides, Jinla and Tubo are only separated by a wall. How can he not know about Jinla's big move? And Jinla might also know. So this time, he directly emptied the Tang dynasty to raise some funds for Jinla. Moreover, Jinla has another plan. As Zhang Feng spoke, his eyes could not help but narrow. Li Shimin was really anxious. If he had known, he would have met Tubo's envoy early this morning. But it was too late now. Brother Zhang, you are Lao Li's brother. Just tell me, how should we deal with this matter? Why are you so anxious? Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin doubtfully and said, The emperor is not in a hurry. You are just a commoner. Why are you in a hurry? How could he not be anxious? How could Li Shimin not be anxious? He was standing next to Zhang Feng. Now he wished he could pull this bastard's ear and tell him that he was Li Shimin. Just tell me. If something goes wrong, I'll use all my belongings on Jinla. If something goes wrong, I'll die. Okay. Since you're in such a hurry, I'll tell you about it. But you have to promise me that you won't tell anyone about this. This is really a state secret. For this matter, We have to start from the drought in Tubo. The drought in Tubo is far more serious than you think. In addition to the incident with the water wheel, I believe that Tubo is in chaos now. The only reason it hasn't exploded yet is because he's deliberately suppressing it. Are you saying that Tubo and Tuyuhan are biding their time to see what the Tang dynasty will do next? Li Shimin narrowed his eyes slightly and suppressed the wisdom in his eyes. Yes. Tubo came to the Tang dynasty this time, because he really wanted to ask for help from the Tang dynasty. Think about it. What do you think a hungry dog will do when it sees its owner throwing a fat piece of meat to another dog? He will rob Zhenla? Chapter 170. At this moment, Li Shimin was a little scared. It was not because of other reasons. It was because the surrounding countries were too quiet. Even the Tujue, who had always been the most active, were observing during this period. They could see a little bit of something from the urgent documents. However, in this regard, the imperial court could only station at the border. There was no other way. This kind of strange atmosphere made Li Shimin feel a trace of uneasiness. He even felt that something big would happen at the retired emperor's birthday this time. However, he did not know what it was for the time being. He just faintly felt that it might have something to do with Tubo. After Tubo got the blueprint as Zhang Feng expected, Tubo did a lot of publicity and then nothing happened. Even the secret agents of the Tang dynasty did not know what happened in the end. This strange situation had not been solved until now. This was what Li Shimin was worried about. Today, if Zhang Feng did not mention it, he would have been kept in the dark. Li Shimin could not help but ask hurriedly, "Do you think Tubo will rob Zhenla's goods, or will he? Do you think Tubo is stupid?" Yesterday, I heard the group of children at the door say that they overheard the conversation of the palace maids in Hejian of the Pure Fragrance Workshop. They said that the envoys of Tubo and Tuyuhan went to the emperor yesterday. But for some reason, the emperor did not receive them. I guess the emperor should know about this and is thinking of a way now. If he doesn't think of a way, haha. What are you laughing about? Li Shimin was so anxious that he was about to go crazy. Seeing Zhang Feng chuckling in the middle of his sentence, he felt unwell. Zhang Feng stared at the wine bowl and said to himself, "Tubo has a purpose for enduring until now. Even a fool can see it, let alone the emperor. I think the emperor should also be thinking of a way, right? Laoli, I advise you to quickly think of a way to sell the things in your hands. If the emperor really did not think of this, then what will happen? Why don't you tell me everything in one breath?" Li Shimin was so anxious that he wanted to climb the wall. Suddenly, Li Shimin's eyes flashed with surprise. "Do you mean that Tubo will rob the Tang dynasty's goods after they leave Chang'an? Isn't it obvious? If His Majesty doesn't deal with this matter immediately, then this matter will definitely happen. Furthermore, I'm guessing that Tubo's appetite is definitely not that small. Think about it, if you wanted to snatch it, what would you do? Where are we going to strike?" Li Shimin frowned as he paced back and forth in the tavern. Zhang Feng didn't rush him, and instead drank his wine leisurely. He wanted to see if old Li's brain was really enlightened. It was such a simple question. As a businessman, if he couldn't think of it, then he really had a problem. Such a big business would be finished sooner or later. After an unknown amount of time, Li Shimin racked his brains for a long time. Suddenly he thought of a place. Lingnan. You're talking about Lingnan, right? Smart. You've finally learned something from me. Not bad, not bad. You have 10% of my ability. However, their appetite isn't that small. Think again. Li Shimin narrowed his eyes and stared into the distance. He murmured, "Could it be that you mean they want to connect with Lingnan and rob the goods that Zhenla is transporting to Chang, and then the goods that Zhenla is transporting to Chang'an?" You're finally enlightened. Zhang Feng got up and walked unsteadily to Li Shimin's side and patted him on the shoulder. "This is a plan to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. If His Majesty can't think of this, I think it's best for you to immediately throw out the goods in your hands. Otherwise, an enraged King Zhenla might not dare to do anything to His Majesty. But I think that he definitely won't let you off." Li Shimin's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. However, he couldn't figure out one thing. "As far as I know, Lingnan has always been submissive to the Tang dynasty. I even heard that General Fengying is stationed there. Are you suspecting that His Majesty is not using people well? No. On the contrary, it's precisely because His Majesty has controlled Lingnan so well that there are no loopholes. Therefore, when we leave Lingnan, the brigade will lower their vigilance. Thus, there will be problems there. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin with a half-smile and said, Lao Li, if I were Tubo's man, where do you think I would make a move? You mean Jiannan Road? Smart. Indeed. There's an eagle-beak cliff in Jiannan Road. It's connected to the Tang dynasty in the east and Tubo in the west. After Eagle Beak Cliff, there's the endless Jinla jungle. Moreover, Tubo often plunder Jinla, so they must know the terrain of Jiannan Road like the back of their hand. However, there's a flaw in your plan. Li Shimin put his hands behind his back and looked very serious. Jiannan Road was heavily garrisoned. How could there be a problem there? However, Zhang Feng mentioned that Tubo was good at hiding, and the terrain of Jiannan Road was very complicated. Therefore, Zhang Feng's words didn't make sense. However, Zhang Feng's meaning was obviously not here. Could it be? A hint of excitement flashed through Li Shiming's mind, and he hurriedly asked, Brother Zhang Feng, you mean to have His Majesty set up an ambush in Jiannan Road, seize the opportunity to intercept the goods from both sides, and eat them all? Chapter 171. Snatch my ass. Lao Li, I've been talking for a long time. Do you think I'm asking you to rob? Tubo can't wait for you to rob. If you rob, no matter who it is, as long as it's someone from the Tang dynasty, it will definitely arouse Jinla's anger. Although Jinla is not afraid, there's a fierce tiger beside Jinla. If this fierce tiger wants to protect its cub, and India intervenes in this matter, once they join forces with Tubo, then you have a pig's brain. Zhang Feng pointed at the pale-faced Li Shimin and roared. He was exasperated at Li Shimin's failure to live up to his expectations. After wasting so much saliva on cooperation, this guy only thought of snatching? Snatch your ass. You little thing, aren't you afraid of being scalded to death? Tubo has been planning for this for a long time. He's just waiting for you to fall into his trap. Why are you still digging into it now? Are you stupid? Zhang Feng was furious. He waved his hand and did not expect Li Shimin to understand. He touched his chin and thought for a while. How about this, you listen to me. Get out of here immediately. Go back and immediately sell all the materials related to Jinla. I believe that those rich businessmen in Chang'an are all envious. This is a good opportunity. Also, tell Zhang Sun about the cooperative right away. Regardless of whether he cares about it or not, all of your trading companies must act immediately. At the very least, you must establish the model of the cooperative before this incident happens. Gather all the finances. After this incident, you Lao Li may become the richest man in Chang'an, and in an instant. Li Shimin was already dumbfounded. He stared at Zhang Feng with his eyes wide open. Zhang Feng was now looking at Li Shimin angrily. He kicked Li Shimin's butt and said, Why aren't you getting out of here? Are you waiting to be beheaded or lose your family fortune? Don't King drag me down. Only then did Li Shimin react. When he walked to the door, Li Shimin stopped and said, Brother Zhang, I plan to send my good-for-nothing sons to you. It doesn't matter. You can just use them as an assistant, okay? Zhang Feng exploded. So, you really think I'm a charity hall? If all your sons were like you, wouldn't I have a headache? I still want to eat and wait for death in peace. Seeing that Zhang Feng did not agree, Li Shimin cupped his fists and left in a hurry. Zhang Feng felt that something was wrong, but he scratched his head and couldn't figure it out. In the end, he lay on the recliner and fell asleep. Li Shimin's face was very gloomy. It was so gloomy that it seemed like water was about to drip out. Wei Shuyu was so shocked that she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. She just silently lowered her head and followed Li Shimin. But when they walked out of the alley, Li Shimin suddenly stopped and said, Pass down my order. Wei Zheng Fang Xianling Du Ruhui Zhang Sun Wuji, Cheng Yaojin and Li Jing. As long as they are not dead, go to the imperial study immediately to wait for the order. Wei Shuyu was shocked. She hurriedly cupped her fists and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." This matter was too big. Li Shimin had a faint feeling that something was wrong with the Turks before, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. On the other hand, the matter of Tubo this time made him neglect it. All his goals were on the Turks. But if it wasn't for Zhang Feng's reminder, he wouldn't have known until now. This matter seemed to be very good, but once there was a trace of negligence, it would be disastrous. Finally, he knew why Zhang Feng wanted him to set up the cooperative. Although it was a business matter, Li Shimin felt that this cooperative must be set up. On the one hand, the Tang dynasty was indeed out of money. If the Turks found out the truth, they would definitely invade at this time. This was what Li Shimin had been paying attention to all along. There was another aspect. It was to strictly prevent Tubo from robbing them halfway. Whether it was Zhenla, Tubo, or the Turks, these three forces seemed to have no connection at all. But with Zhang Feng's suggestion, were these three forces really not connected? No. In fact, Zhang Feng had seen through it and also mentioned it. But he was worried that there were spies around Li Shimin, or people who didn't keep their mouths shut. If this was leaked out, it would be a disaster that would destroy the entire clan. Behind all this, the Turks were behind it. But he didn't understand the real intention of the Tang dynasty, nor did he know the actual situation of the Tang dynasty. So he joined forces with Tubo to pressure King Zhenla, forcing him to use the entire country's strength to exchange all the resources sent by Neng Yin. This was a difficult problem to begin with. Not to mention that King Zhenla came so quickly. As for the Crown Prince of Zhenla, it was just a coincidence that he met Zhang Feng and triggered this matter. If it wasn't for Zhang Feng tricking the silly Prince Zhenla, then Li Shimin felt a chill down his spine when he thought about this matter. "Zhenla, you're really tired of living. Do you really think that I, Li Shimin, am a fool?" Li Shimin was furious. He felt that he had been fooled. He should have noticed the Turks long ago. When had the Turks ever been obedient? Never. If there was even the slightest problem with the Tang dynasty, they wouldn't let go of the chance to take advantage of it. Not to mention that the Turks were also in trouble now. Li Shimin looked at the swaying sedan chair and slammed his fist on the soft couch. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "Turks, it's time to settle our scores." Chapter 172. Li Shimin was very angry. So much so that his face was gloomy all the way. He even turned a deaf ear to Crown Prince Li Chengqian's report about Tubo. As soon as he entered the palace, he rushed into the imperial study angrily without changing his clothes. However, the moment he entered the imperial study, the coldness on his face suddenly disappeared. He became calm like an ancient well. This caused the eyes of the 6 people waiting here to flicker with a trace of hesitation. Then they hurriedly bowed and said, "We welcome Your Majesty." Li Shimin waved his big sleeve and said, "Li Jing Qingyao Jin, have you received any information about the Turks recently?" Li Jing and Cheng Yaojin hurriedly stepped forward. "Your Majesty, for the time being, the Turks have not detected any abnormalities in Yuzhou. Even the secret agents and our spies disguised as merchants have not detected any abnormalities. On the contrary, I heard that a large number of cattle and sheep have died innocently. Tuli has sent the tribes to drive the cattle and sheep to other places. Your Majesty, the garrison in Longyu Road has reported that Xieli has not done anything recently. Even the garrison patrolling the border has been reduced." Hearing this, Li Shimin was surprised and asked, "Have you noticed how many garrison troops have been reduced?" Previously, there were 130,000 troops stationed at the border. 5 days ago, I heard that the garrison troops have been reduced by 30,000. It is said that they have gone back to deal with the famine in the tribes. Xieli famine. Withdraw 30,000 troops? Tuli's military is abnormal? No. There is something wrong. Li Jing, I ask you, has there been any abnormalities in Yuzhou recently? Recently, everything in Yuzhou has been normal. However, General Cheng just said that the garrison in Longyu Road has been reduced. I just noticed that there seems to be some Turk garrison troops in Yuzhou. Your Majesty, did something happen? Could it be that Tuli and Xieli want to go south? Everyone also heard that something was wrong. In addition to the warning from Wei Shuyu, who had just informed them, The emperor was unusually furious after coming out of the small tavern. Could it be Li Shimin ignored them? He stood on the map on the side of the study and carefully observed. Something was wrong. Could it be that little brother Zhang Feng was thinking too much? There was nothing unusual about the Turks. Could it be Tubo? Thinking of this, Li Shimin asked again, Zhang Sun Wuji. Present. Did any of Tubo's spies find anything? Is there any unusual activity in their army? Zhang Sun Wuji thought for a while but didn't say anything. Wei Zheng hurriedly replied. Replying to your majesty, this subject received a report from Jiannan Circuit 2 hours ago. Jiannan Dao? Li Shimin's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly asked, say what? For days ago, there were signs that the Tubo army was secretly gathering. Chapter 173. In fact, Li Shimin had also thought about this. However, after thinking about it, he finally rejected this idea. This way, the effect would be the same. Moreover, if this trade was really cut off, wouldn't King Zhenla's 300,000 troops instantly invade the Tang dynasty? This was an army of 300,000. I was too careless. Li Shimin felt waves of dizziness. Brother Zhang Feng, you've really given us a difficult problem. Once it's dealt with, the Tang dynasty will really be able to suppress the surrounding areas. However, if it's not controlled well, it'll be like shooting yourself in the foot. Li Shimin knew Zhang Feng's intention. If it was a small business transaction, or if Li Shimin was really a businessman, then the threat caused by the whole thing to Li Shimin was next to nothing. At most he would go to jail, at most he would lose his head. However, he was different. He was Li Shimin, the emperor of the Tang dynasty. Although Zhang Feng had inadvertently found out about this matter, and wanted to find the problem from this clue, once this problem was revealed, Li Shimin really couldn't bear it. Li Shimin couldn't help but rub his aching head. When I first learned about this matter, I indeed had the same thought as you. However, have you ever thought that this is a series of traps? Even without King Zhenla's interference, think about it. How will this birthday celebration be? Why has Tubo been suppressing this matter? Why has the Turks been deliberately hiding the snow disaster? Until now, apart from the snow disaster, why has Brother Zhang Feng guessed that there will be a famine in the grassland after the snow disaster? Have you ever thought about these questions? I also just remembered that the Turks are planning a huge conspiracy, and Zhang Feng just happened to inadvertently tear open a hole in their plan, causing a trace of a flaw to appear in their originally perfect and impeccable plan. Li Shimin couldn't help but close his eyes. He didn't dare to think about this conspiracy. Once Tuli and Xieli joined forces with Tubo and Tuyuhun to launch an attack at the same time, could the Tang dynasty really stop them? Obviously, they couldn't stop them. The Turks were good at deceit, and now they were connected to India. In this case, the situation of Tubo's drought was worth thinking about. At this time, everyone's expression was extremely solemn. Zhang Sun Wuji stood up and asked, Your Majesty, since Brother Zhang Feng saw the clue, does he have a plan to deal with this matter? Everyone slapped their heads. Only then, they thought of Zhang Feng. That's right. Damn it. Since Brother Zhang Feng could see this, it meant that he already had a plan to deal with it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called Zhang Feng. This guy couldn't be judged by common sense. Since he was able to say such words, and the emperor was angry, but not anxious, it seemed that there was still room to turn this matter around. Tubo people entered Zhenla from the dense forest outside Jiannan Road. And then King Zhenla came to the Tang dynasty. Do you believe that King Zhenla came after receiving a message from Crown Prince Zhenla? Wrong. Because think about it, there's actually no poisonous salt or seafood that we need in the goods this time. It's just their ordinary goods. Think about it carefully. What do these goods look like? Wei Zheng's eyes were filled with shock. Like fleeing? Li Shimin nodded. At this moment, everyone was finally overwhelmed with shock. Fleeing. How could they send out all their troops? Could it be that they wanted to take the opportunity to act when they were seeking protection? However, with such a small number of troops and a long journey, they were not familiar with the battlefield. What kind of combat power could they have? There were also many old, weak women and children among them. It was more like they were fleeing. Could it be they were afraid of some kind of threat, so they were preparing to flee to the Tang dynasty? When they thought of this, everyone was not stupid. They instantly understood the cause and effect of the matter. Tubo's intentions were really vicious. Poor King Zhenla. When he arrived in Chang'an, there were people from Tubo watching him. He did not dare to say anything. Therefore, he could only use himself as a hostage. Instead of saying that he lived in the East Palace, it was better to say that he requested to be placed under house arrest. Their intention. Now, do you all understand? This is only one of the reasons. The second reason is that they can use this to test the real situation of the Tang dynasty. I lost the first time. When Zhenla's army of 300,000 entered the Tang dynasty, I did not notice anything, nor did I realize anything else. This has already caused Tubo and the other countries to have the intention to make their next move. If I had taken a tougher stance back then, I might have been able to stop them from entering the Tang dynasty. Then Tubo's plan would have been delayed, and would not have exploded so quickly. The third reason is the most vicious place in Tubo. You all have heard that Longyu and Yuzhou have lost a lot of Turkic troops. Why is that? Coupled with the abnormal situation in Jiannan Circuit, now you all know why I deployed so many troops there, right? Li Shimin looked at Cheng Yaojin as he said the last sentence. At this moment, if Cheng Yaojin still did not understand, he would really be a pig. In an instant, a group of men in black hiding in the dark quickly lurked out. Chapter 177. King Zhenla sent Li Shimin away. The smile on his face slowly turned into desolation. At this moment, looking at the pitch-black palace, he felt incomparably terrified. It was like a huge cage. Not only was this huge dragon looking down on the common people coldly, but it would also extend its sharp claws and teeth at any time. And he was a chess piece crawling at the feet of this huge dragon. It was very sad. But this was his true situation. He had to choose a faction to rely on. Otherwise, what awaited him would be complete destruction. Tubo. There was no need to think about it. This was a hungry wolf that ate meat without spitting out the bones. And India? It was the same. Previously, King Zhenla was still wavering. However, after receiving the letter from his son, he made up his mind. Since they all forced him, he would take everyone away. He knew that the Tang dynasty. He had also looked up to it before. He didn't know if the bet this time was right or wrong, but he had to consider Zhen La's future. The Tang dynasty was his last backer. Father. Unknowingly, King Zhenla had returned to that cold cage. At the door, the crown prince and the princess consort were looking forward to it. Although it was already late at night, their eyes were full of rewards. King Zhenla waved his hand, indicating for the princess consort to go to sleep. Then he closed the door and sat quietly in the dark room with Crown Prince Shiva. Silence. A deathly silence. It was as if the two of them had fallen asleep in the darkness. It was also as if there was no one in the darkness. After an unknown amount of time, King Zhenla asked in a hoarse voice, "Are you saying that all of Zhen La's treasures were told to you by that master called Zhang Feng? Is he really just the shopkeeper of a small tavern?" "Yes. He is indeed a shopkeeper. In the future, if you have nothing to do, don't go to a small tavern." "Yes, I understand." The room was silent again. No one knew what King Zhenla was thinking. But at this moment in Li Shimin's bedroom, Li Shimin was still awake. "Guanyin maid, do you think we are being merciful to King Zhenla this time?" Li Shimin told Empress Zhongsun everything that had happened just now, as well as what had happened in the tavern today. At this moment his mood was slightly better. At the very least, it was confirmed today that Zhenla had no intention of rebelling. Second brother, isn't the current crisis starting to be resolved? Oh. Li Shimin looked at Empress Zhongsun in surprise. Empress Zhongsun pursed her lips and said, originally, I shouldn't have interfered with second brother's decisions, but I feel that now, we have already made a counterattack. The people of Tubo and India probably still don't know that your majesty knows about this matter. Moreover, the moment King Zhenla left, I had already cleaned up the mess. This matter won't spread for the time being. And now, the first stage of Tubo's probing has passed. Although Zhenla is helping the evildoers, he has revealed everything tonight. This is a good thing for second brother. Second brother can wholeheartedly solve the problem of Tubo. The root of the problem is still Tubo's drought. But I feel that at this time, we should give them a little warning. What kind of warning? Li Shimin's eyes flashed as he asked. He knew the key point of this matter. As long as they firmly controlled Tubo and Tuyuhun, the Turkic people's desire to join forces and invade the south would collapse. Moreover, as long as the cooperative was established, as long as there was a steady stream of economic recovery, they would naturally not have to worry about their probing. After all, none of them could afford to waste time. Now, as long as they dealt with Tubo, would the Turkic people in India be able to cause a ripple? No. Under the situation of being exhausted, everyone knew that it was a military taboo. Moreover, Shui Yintua, who was watching the Turkic people, did not dare to act rashly. Otherwise, why would he need to join forces with other countries? After thinking through all this, Li Shimin's expression could not help but soften. He could not help but smile bitterly. In the end, the Tang dynasty is still short of money. If the country is rich and the people are strong, who would dare to act rashly? Second brother, there's no need to worry too much. No one dares to carelessly start this war. Just as Zhang Feng said, whoever starts this war will be the country that will perish. What they're doing now is simply putting pressure on the Great Tang. Oh, tell me about it. Hearing this, Li Shimin's interest was aroused. He wanted to see who dared to put pressure on the Tang dynasty. Tubo. Except for Tubo, there is no one else. Second brother. Have you forgotten the last negotiation? They dared to cause trouble in Chang'an city. Do you think they will let it go this time? Last time, second brother, you asked them for 40 million gold. They went back and advertised vigorously, but they could not produce it. Obviously, they have realized that they have fallen into a trap. Second brother, what do you think you will do if you are in their shoes? Li Shimin put his arms around Empress Zhongsuan's slender waist. Guanyin maid, you are really my good wife. Empress Zhongsun blushed and said coquettishly, second brother, don't be happy first. There is still one thing that needs to be done. What is it? A show of force. Chapter 178. Clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop. In the quiet palace, the crisp sound of a warhorse's hooves tore through the silence of the night. As soon as the warhorse came out of Li Shimin's stable, it hurriedly held up a token, passed through various large and small doors, and disappeared into the darkness of Chang'an city. On the outer wall of Honglu Temple, 3 men in sheepskin shirts narrowed their eyes and stared at the galloping horse thoughtfully. Brother Sok, why did this horse go out at this time? Did something go wrong with our plan? In the darkness, a burly man looked at Chang'an city in the distance and asked a thin man beside him. The man was very thin, but his arms were unusually long. His palms were also unusual. They were twice the size of an adult's, like a palm leaf fan. The man narrowed his triangular eyes and glanced at Chang'an city. Then, like an ape, he climbed between the houses of Honglu Temple. After a while, he appeared in a room with an oil lamp still on. After a while, the other 2 men returned to the room. One of them was a burly man with a sallow face. He had a horn dagger at his waist, and a large wine sack hanging from his neck. He was a Turkic. The other man was a Tubo man named Sok. He wore similar clothes, but his headdress was different from Sok's. He was a Tuyuhun expert named Gokopi. At this time, Sok was playing with a dagger in his hand. This matter may have nothing to do with our plan. If there's nothing else back it, I hope you can keep your mouth shut. You should know how serious this matter is. Although we're not sure if the people of the Tang dynasty can start a war, if we push them too far, we'll be in trouble. You worry too much. Didn't Jinla, that dog fart King Jinla, flee to the great Tang in fear? I think if King Jinla is not a fool, his army of 300,000 must be here to take a share of the Tang dynasty. 300,000? Gecko Pai laughed disdainfully. He's such a coward. I think if the emperor of the Tang dynasty knew about this, the first person he would kill would be his father. Otherwise, why would he be grounded by Li Shimin? Don't ever mention this again. Sok glanced at the two of them with a cold expression. If anything goes wrong, I believe that your Khan and the Mun King will tear your tendons and skin you alive. When the two of them heard this, they awkwardly stopped mentioning this matter. I don't know what the higher-ups have arranged. Why are they so cautious about the Tang dynasty? Wouldn't it be easy for the four of us to conquer the Tang dynasty? At this moment, a young man in a purple robe silently appeared in the room through the window. When the people saw this person, they hurriedly bowed. Little Prince. The young man lay on the chair with his legs on the table and asked, "What's the horse that just went out for? Did you find out?" I haven't found out yet. The three of them lowered their heads and didn't dare to speak. Even their bodies couldn't help shaking. The young man in the purple robe looked at them playfully. Forget it. It's not important. I've already dealt with the person. He's a messenger who went to Longyu Road to deliver a letter. The dog emperor wants to eat locust eggs in the middle of the night. He's really stupid. Okay, you can leave now. Continue to monitor every movement in the imperial city. Don't touch King Jinla for the time being. Now the security there is tight. Even I can't get in. Yes. What could they say? What else could they say? At this time they had no choice but to agree. This person was Xieli's eldest son, the future Khan of the Turks. How could they dare to offend him? They left embarrassedly. However, they didn't know that they were in the Tang dynasty. And they were in the deepest part of the Tang dynasty, the Honglu Temple, which was specially used to receive foreign guests. Their every move and everything that happened just now had been secretly recorded in a small notebook by the palace experts hiding in the dark. As for the person who just went out, he was a prisoner on death row. He was just a puzzle sent to them. If Li Shimin couldn't even think of this, he wouldn't be Li Shimin. After a while, in Li Shimin's bedroom, Wei Shiyu knocked on the door of Li Shimin's room. Your Majesty, it's done. It's just as your Majesty expected. Li Shimin didn't even open the door. He looked at Zhang Feng's calligraphy and wrote something on a piece of rice paper. Hearing this, Li Shimin's expression didn't change. He said lightly, "Send an order. Keep a close watch on the Honglu Temple. Their every move must be reported at any time. Even if their servants go out, where they go and who they come into contact with, they must be reported to me as soon as possible." Wei Shiyu was silent for a moment. She asked, "Your Majesty, what if they go out in the middle of the night?" Li Shimin said lightly, "Kill them." "Yes, Your Majesty. Also, the people who go to Longyu can set off now. Let the people in Longyu chop the water wheel. There's no need to hide this matter. It's best to let the whole world know." Wei Shiyu trembled all over. She hurriedly accepted the order. "Yes, Your Majesty." The little Khan predicted that there might be changes at any time, so he asked the leader to temporarily close the gambling house to avoid attracting the attention of the Tang dynasty's government. Close the gambling house. That's easy for him to say. Then why didn't he pay for me? If I don't have money, how am I supposed to buy food? The brawny man shouted angrily. He smashed the rosewood bed railings with his palm. "You tell the little Khan. Now I have prepared 500 dawn of food and stored it in a safe place outside the city to facilitate movement. There are also 3,000 dawn of food. It is estimated that in a few days, it will be transported out of the city. Ask him to find a caravan to transport it to the grassland. As for Lao Tzu's gambling house, he can't care about it. Get lost." Zhang Feng did not sleep well. He did not know why. It was so quiet that he could hear a mouse running next door. He did not know what was wrong with the room these days. It was so noisy in the middle of the night, and he did not know if there was something wrong with his bed, or if he was hallucinating. He could always hear women's coquettish complaints by chance. This was terrible. As soon as he heard this voice, he went crazy. Was he sick? At this time, Zhang Feng grabbed his hair and sat cross-legged on the bed, thinking hard about whether he should find a doctor to take a look. This was obviously not right. Previously, when he said that he was thinking about women, it would not be a hallucination, right? But now? Damn it, once it was past midnight. That guy was so noisy that he was about to go crazy. No. Damn it, was there something wrong with holding it in? Or was there really something wrong with the room opposite? Zhang Feng was shocked. Could it be that someone opened a brothel next door? This kind of thing had happened before. In order to attract business, merchants would often open temporary brothels in Chang'an city in the middle of the night in some unoccupied shops. However, Zhang Feng had read about this in the unofficial history books. He also heard about it from the old man who rode at the corner of the street. At that time, the old man's eyes were no longer cloudy. It was as if he was talking about his glorious past. Something's not right. Zhang Feng finally exploded when he heard a woman's coquettish complaint. He hid in the corner and listened without even turning on the lights. The walls of the ancient times, especially the walls of the houses, were made with an inexhaustible amount of mud. In addition, mice were diligently digging holes every day. Basically, as long as one squatted in the corner of the wall, one could hear the conversation of the neighbors through the mouse hole. However, when Zhang Feng put his ear to the mouse hole, he really heard that something was not right. It was actually a gambling den opposite. Damn it! How could this be? Chapter 180. That night, Zhang Feng slept very badly. So much so that when the sun was high up in the sky, he still had panda eyes and mosquito kisses all over his face. He was snoring loudly in the shadow under the crooked tree. So much so that Guzi and the others came. Seeing that there was no business to be done, they covered Zhang Feng's face with a lotus leaf and left. Gulp. Gulp. After some time, Zhang Feng was so hot that he almost stopped breathing. Then he woke up amidst the protest of his stomach. What entered his eyes was a large patch of green, which almost made Zhang Feng think that he had transmigrated again. After pondering for a long time, he realized that this thing was just a lotus leaf. Zhang Feng was so angry that he cursed Guzi and said that he was going to murder him. It also attracted a few patrolling guards. After confirming that this was a farce, the guards left with a strange expression. There was no choice. It was useless to say anything now. The most important thing was to worship the temple of the five viscera first. He yelled. The boss of a dumpling stall across the street brought a big bowl of dumplings over. He didn't even want the money and left. How could Zhang Feng be willing? While the two of them were arguing, the man who bought the dumplings became anxious. He grabbed Zhang Feng's collar and asked, "Are you going to eat it or not?" Zhang Feng was terrified. He raised his hands in surrender. Only then did the man put him on the ground in satisfaction. The Tang people were so simple. The name of a good person was useful. Even if you went out to eat, you didn't need to bring money at all. If you dared to mention money, the boss of the stall would either hold a kitchen knife, a rolling pin, or a fist as big as a sandbag to greet you. What a cute and simple person. Zhang Feng squatted on the ground, holding the big bowl and sucking the dumplings. A bowl of dumplings finally stopped his stomach from making a fuss. Zhang Feng had nothing to do again. He moved the stool to a shady place. Seeing the daughter of the boss of the dumplings staring at him, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Xiaoya, come over here." "Oh." The little girl responded in a crisp voice, and then ran over eagerly. Usually, when Zhang Feng was bored to death, he would find some children to play with him in the shop. What kind of games? They were competing to see who could eat faster. Moreover, all the children were fascinated by the big mouth game that he invented. Xiaoya was only 8 or 9 years old. Because she was malnourished, her hair was still yellow like straw. She wasn't afraid when she saw Zhang Feng. She asked, "Brother, are we going to play the game of Big Mouth?" Brother Guzzi and the others aren't here. No, no, no. Look at this. As he spoke, Zhang Feng took out a piece of silver from his bosom and said, Big brother isn't feeling well today. Help Big brother fan me and Big brother will give you money, okay? No. Big brother is a good person. Daddy won't let me take your money. As she spoke, the little girl didn't even look at the pitch-black silver in Zhang Feng's hand that was full of teeth marks. That was awkward. Zhang Feng scratched his head. Then, help Big brother fan me. When Big brother is better, I'll give you braised pork, okay? Okay. The deal was quickly reached. Zhang Feng lay on the recliner happily. The little girl started fanning with all her might. Although her little clothes were already drenched, at the thought of being able to eat delicious braised pork with her mother at night, Xiaoya held back her strength and started fanning with all her might. In fact, Xiaoya's father had already seen it, but he pretended not to see it. Zhang Feng was a good person. That was something that everyone on this street knew. However, Zhang Feng also had a nickname, Slacker, the super lazy kind. Moreover, he was a prodigal. He didn't run the shop properly and only knew how to sleep all day. Not to mention that, no one knew where he got the money from. Every day, he would take out a handful of money and give it away. This also made the neighbors sigh secretly. He was a good person. However, he was a poor man. At the age of 20, he didn't join the army, nor did he go to the Imperial College. All he did was sleep all day. And he was a F***king bachelor. As a man, Boss Hun saw the heavy dark circles under Zhang Feng's eyes at a glance. He was missing a woman. Alas! Such a good boy. Is there something wrong with his body or something? At the thought of this, Boss Hun Dun endured the pain, and went to the winery next door to buy 2 taels of wine. Then he walked slowly to Zhang Feng's side. Little brother, you're still sleeping there. Seeing that Xiaoya's father was here, how could Zhang Feng still be sleepy? Hey brother you're not guarding the stall? Hey, what's there to guard? There's no one here. Besides, I have a problem with that guy. Even if I leave it on the street, no one will want it. It's all because I'm popular. Brother he smiled honestly and said, Feng, I see that you have dark circles under your eyes these days. Could it be that you didn't sleep well? If there's something wrong with your body, go see a doctor. Although I don't have money, I'm familiar with all the neighbors on this street. I know a doctor who specializes in men's diseases. Why don't you? Fine. Zhang Feng's face instantly darkened. Brother you. Fine, I'm all right. There's no problem. Although he said so, Zhang Feng still felt a little guilty. Damn, he was hallucinating. But he was sure that there was nothing wrong with him. It was embarrassing to say this in front of Xiaoya. Seeing that Mr. He was carrying a bamboo bottle of wine, he pulled Mr. He into the store. Brother He, we've known each other for more than half a year, but you haven't tasted my cooking. Today, I'll let you have a taste. Let's talk while eating. Mr. Zhang Feng didn't mind his wine. He finished a bowl of it. Seeing that there was no more wine, he turned around and took 2 jars from the counter. Old He, let's drink to our heart's content today. If you have something to say, say it. Brother, if you don't want to take a look, I'll show you. As he spoke, Zhang Feng was about to unbuckle his belt. However, Old Ho pulled him back. I believe you. But if you don't find a wife like this, it's not a good idea either. You spend money like water every day. This is not good. Yes, you have a wife to do the housework for you. What did he mean? Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. It seemed that Old He's purpose for coming here today was not pure. I know you don't like people like us, but it's not good for the neighbors to see you like this. 20 years old and not marrying is disrespectful to your ancestors. I can't watch you go on like this. There are 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no descendants is the worst. You're not young anymore. I've been looking on the streets during this period of time, and really found a young lady from a big family. She looks very similar to the singers at the entrance of Tsuyun restaurant. Nod your head. If you like her, we'll find a matchmaker. Fine. Old he brother. We're not in a hurry. We're only 20 years old. Zhang Feng was going crazy. They were matchmakers. Why were Lao Li and the others like this? Even old he was like this? Was he such an eyesore? Old he could not take it anymore. He stretched out his rough hand and pointed at Zhang Feng's eyes, saying, Look at your eyes. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? You're already like this. Why don't you find a wife? How about this? If you don't like her, you can go to Tsuyin restaurant to vent your anger. It's not good to keep holding it in. I heard that the prostitutes there only earn $1 a night. This bit of money is nothing to you, right? Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. Tsuyin restaurant? You want Lao Tzu to go there? Zhang Feng was a little suspicious. Old he had some ulterior motives. Old he, to be honest, I haven't been sleeping well these days. It's not because of anything else. Every night, there will be a squeaking sound coming from the old house next door. It's like a brothel. I feel like I'm living in a brothel. Old he who used to live next door. Is it haunted? This has caused me to be unable to sleep for the entire night. Hearing that, old he finally understood. So this was the reason for this boy's troubles? Old he could not help but let out a soft cry of surprise. If you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have noticed. During this period of time, I've always seen a group of bearded men coming in and out. A few of them were eating dumplings at my stall and spoke Turkic. Turkic? What's more, this is the Tang Dynasty, Chang'an City. When the time comes, we can close the door and beat the dogs. It's the best way to deter the world. Li Shimin was silent. Zhang Sunwuji also breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Li Shimin waved his hand and said, I'll give you 2-3 days to find out the stronghold of these rats in Chang'an City. If you can't find it, you will be punished severely. Yes, Your Majesty. You may leave. Wei Zheng and Zhang Sunwuji then left the imperial study without daring to breathe loudly. As soon as they went out, Zhang Sunwuji hurriedly pulled Wei Zheng and said, Prime Minister Wei, you have to save us. This time, the emperor is really angry. But you know, I'm busy with the cooperative now. This, Lord Zhangsun, I've decided. The emperor has given a clear hint on this matter. Wei Zheng said while stroking his beard. Zhang Sunwuji was confused. He pulled Wei Zheng to a bush not far from the imperial study. Prime Minister Wei, you said that the emperor has given a hint on this matter? Did you forget one person? Tell me, Brother Zifeng? Wei Zheng didn't say anything and just walked away leisurely. Only he can help you with this matter. Hey, old Wei, don't run away. You old man, I almost fell for your tricks. You have a part to play in this matter too. Zhang Sunwuji was almost confused by Wei Zheng. But when he saw that Wei Zheng was about to leave, he remembered that it was the emperor who gave them this matter. Moreover, he couldn't do it alone. Among them, he had to ask the secretaries to issue the official documents and the minister's residence. Even if Zhang Sunwuji had 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to handle it all. Zhang Sunwuji couldn't help but lift his robe and catch up with Wei Zheng. He sat down on his soft sedan chair, causing Wei Zheng to frown. Why are you sticking to me like this? Go do what you need to do. Hey, old Wei, this matter was given to us by the emperor. Do you still want to work hard? Don't even think about it. Wei Zheng was speechless. Old man is going to the secretaries. Why are you following him? Secretaries? Do you think I'm stupid? This is the way back to the residence. Old man's body is unwell. How can I trouble Zhangsun? Get out of here. Don't play dumb with me. Do you think I don't know? Last night, you were drinking with Fang Xianling, and were caught by the guards. Don't you think so? Wei Zheng was also angry. He didn't sleep well last night. Now that he finally wanted to take this opportunity to go back and rest, this old fox was actually angry? Hey, Zhangsun, you scoundrel. What do you want? Chapter 185. The two of them quarreled in the palanquin. In the end, they did not return home. They found a shop in Chang'an, and then bought 2 sets of clothes. They disguised themselves as ordinary people and rushed to Zhang Feng's tavern in a fit of pique. They even sent away their attendants. Zhang Feng was very bored. On tidying up day, he slept during the day and suffered in pain and anticipation at night. In 3 days, he had basically confirmed one thing. The people living next to him were really Turks. Almost every day, there would be a fixed number of 5 wealthy merchants from Chang'an and entering the manor. There were even people from the government mixed in. This did not include some new faces. Fortunately, this place was located in a remote area. Basically, the patrolling soldiers would turn around in front of Zhang Feng's tavern. Although Zhang Feng's tavern was at a crossroad, there was no one in the alley inside the tavern. Usually, even children did not dare to play in the tavern. It was said that there was a rich man in the previous dynasty who offended Yang Guang. In the end, his whole family was executed. The ancient people were superstitious. They always said that there were ghosts that came out in the middle of the night to take lives. As a matter of fact, Zhang Feng was not the only one who was tortured in the middle of the night. At this time, groups of women carrying candles and ingots were on the street not far from Zhang Feng's tavern. They burned so much that the patrolling soldiers thought that the tavern was on fire. Everyone was burning joss paper and begging the ghosts not to take their lives. Even the rich had to hire Taoist priests and monks to perform rituals on the streets. They were so noisy that Zhang Feng could not sleep well. Once, a cow's nose even pulled Zhang Feng and pointed at Zhang Feng's panda eyes, telling the onlookers that he was possessed by evil spirits. In the end, if old he and his father had not guessed the protector with a shoulder pole, Zhang Feng would have been miserably cheated. After that, Zhang Feng did not dare to sleep in front of the tavern during the day. Who knew when someone would use a boy's urine to exorcise him? He couldn't get angry yet. All he could do was stare at the man and mutter, "This is all for your own good. What's wrong with being possessed by evil? You haven't married yet. Do you want me to arrange a marriage for you? That daughter of mine is more beautiful than anything else." But when Zhu Xinyang came to Zhang Feng with a strong woman with a big waist, Zhang Feng held the kitchen knife and was about to go crazy. Only then did the crowd stop wanting to propose marriage to him. It was 2F** King scary. For example, the flowers were scary. If he were to marry her, Zhang Feng would probably be scared to death in the middle of the night. Sigh. It's too damn difficult. Zhang Feng looked up at the sky and sighed. However, he was reprimanded by Zhu Zi's mother. "Man, if you don't find a wife, you'll bring shame to your ancestors. Tell Auntie, which family's girl do you like? Even if she's a concubine, you should marry one. If you endure like this, even if you don't feel uncomfortable, we feel uncomfortable watching it." "Auntie, I actually have a wife. She's currently studying at Han University." Zhang Feng was helpless. He could only use a girlfriend he had dated online for 3 years in his previous life, whom he had met 3 times, and who was about 9 years older than him. But this time it was over. The entire neighborhood knew in the next moment. "Sai Fengzi, where is your wife from? Is she good at giving birth? Where is Han University? Why haven't I stopped? Fengzi, are you fooling old man? Studying? Do you think old man studied Confucius for nothing? Which girl who can study isn't a lady from a wealthy family? If you can marry her, old man will take your surname." This was the roar of old man, who wrote letters for others on the street. As for the purpose, Sima Zhao's heart was enough. The old man wanted to find a good family for his 14-year-old granddaughter. Zhang Feng, who was literate, handsome, and had a family with too much money to spend, had become his target. Now that he knew that Zhang Feng had a wife, how could he be willing? This was difficult to handle. "Old man, I appreciate your kindness, but this marriage was decided by my parents. Moreover, it was decided when I was young. You can't expect me to be an unfilial son, right? Sigh. Forget it. This old man doesn't understand young people's matters." Old man flicked his sleeves. When he saw the silver ingot in his sleeve, he said to the crowd, "Everyone leave. Don't worry about Fengzi's matters. Put away your thoughts." Only then did the crowd leave in embarrassment. Zhang Feng couldn't wait to slap himself a few times. If he knew that the silver ingot would be useful, why didn't he take it out earlier? F***ck. He even said that he was Confucius's student. Confucius had already ascended to immortality for hundreds of years. How dare he claim to be his student? Aren't you afraid that those Shandong scholars will hear you and beat you with a board? However, he could only think about this in his heart. Who knew if old man was really from Shandong before? Otherwise, he would have been caught and beaten by the authorities if he was an ordinary person who shouted on the street all day long. Zhang Feng was about to close the door with a bang. But at this moment, a teasing voice stunned Zhang Feng. Yo, brother Zhang Feng's popularity is getting better and better. Chapter 186. They were Zhangsun Wuji and Wei Zheng, who was panting. Zhang Feng looked at the two men, who were sweating profusely and panting like old cows. He was dumbfounded. Old son, old Wei, are you being chased by ghosts? Don't talk. Give old man a bowl of water first. Wei Zheng and Zhangsun Wuji did not have the strength to speak. They hunched over and held onto the door sill. When they finally sat on the chair, they began to moan. What's going on? Zhang Feng was confused. He hurried to the kitchen and scooped a ladle of warm water for them. When the two men saw each other, they immediately began to fight over the water. Fine, I have to give them some more. Otherwise, neither of us can drink the water. Don't worry. I'll give you some. Both of you have some. Zhang Feng finally managed to serve the two men, who were about to explode. He asked carefully, Masters, are you running a race in Chang'an City? Kid, how can you say that? What's a race? It's a competition to see who can run faster. Zhang Feng saw that the two men were flushed and their voices were hoarse. He quickly changed his name. Zhangsun Wuji said in a rough voice, Brother Zhang Feng, you can't make the decision. This old man is shameless. Lao Li ordered us to do something important. Good Lord. This guy went to drink with prostitutes last night, and was caught by the night patrol. He was locked up for the night. He wanted to take this opportunity to go home and slack off. I just said a few words to him. Hey old son, you're good. You didn't do a good job in this matter. Emperor. Lao Li just said a few words to me. You took it seriously? Besides, last night, old man only went to Wentai Lu to drink tea and discuss poetry with his friends. How is that drinking with prostitutes? Then is it true that he was locked up in prison? Don't deny it. I have evidence. Yes, so what? Do you think old man is afraid of you? Zhang Feng's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He looked speechlessly at the two old men, who were in their 50s, talking about each other like two old kids. What the hell is going on? Lao Tzu was annoyed enough. Zhang Feng was furious. Just as the two old men rolled up their sleeves and were about to fight, Zhang Feng roared, Don't make a ruckus. Shut up. Needless to say, this roar instantly stunned both of them. After a while, the two of them looked at Zhang Feng with red eyes and thick necks. Zhang Feng shrunk his neck. Please continue. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. He was terrified. But how could they continue now? They said fiercely to each other. They sat on the chairs and sulked after fighting again in the future. Zhang Feng carefully hid in the kitchen. He chopped up the pig offal that he had just braised in the morning, and put 2 jars of wine on the table. Until now, the two old men wrinkled their noses and sniffed the aroma.